Sizzix Halloween. Now there's a lot. So Halloween is really a fall and Halloween. And there's only a little bit of fall, but of course here, you know, fall, Halloween time, I like a little mix of everything. We're going to talk about all the different technologies, categories. I'm just going to kind of buzz through the release because we'll talk more in detail about each design really in the makes. Okay. So the first one really for autumn, this is called Countryside. And this is just it's a background die. And this was a die, I've done some other dies before that have the background and have all these great little accents that come into. But what's great about this is that you can see the die itself is a cool background die that cuts out all of these negative pieces. Now this in itself could be a great screen. You could put acetate, you could do shaker card, you can do any of that. But you get all these great little bits that come out, right? All these little pieces. And these pieces are just very cool elements just on their own. You can save these elements and put the little tree and houses and things like that on a card. But what we did this time, even though we had a negative space, because sometimes when we design a die, we design for a positive and a negative. So we knew this was going to be a dropout, but I see so many people using the dropout that I wanted to even add detail to the dropout pieces. If you throw it away, you throw it away. But if you save it, you'll see that even the dropout pieces of like the little houses, we even went in and cut out windows. So you've got great pieces. So if you cut this out, you can ink these pieces. You can cut this out of different cardstock. You can pop these back in on a card front. You have these little areas here. If you back this, you could put in, you'll see some makes with like putting stickles or glitter glue in there, or you can just leave them as snowflakes if you wanted to. So this really, Countryside could be any season, I would imagine. I think even for springtime, you could probably turn these green or just add some elements, but I thought it was a great background die, but also just some cool little, yeah, extra goodies. Like Julie said, you get the extra goodies. They're fun. And some people can't be bothered with them, but really they're not that tiny. You have some very cool elements with it, right? So that is Countryside. Now the next one, I'm going to say, I'm going to go out and just say it's a favorite. I can say that. I can play favorites here with my designs because I love this. I love this one. Shout out to Lisa at Sizzix who really rocked this. So this is called Leaf Fragments. And what this is, I actually licensed photographs because I don't draw any of my stuff. I license artwork. I see things and we transform drawings or whatever into die cuts. But on this particular one, I wanted the most authentic leaf possible. So I saw this amazing photography, and so we licensed the photography of these great eroded leaves. And I said to Lisa, who really takes the ideas and brings them to life, I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if we can actually capture all those little details in that photograph, all the little eaten out areas and the little tattered areas on these leaves to make dies? Because I've done a bazillion kind of leaves. We've done tattered leaves and regular leaves, and these leaf fragments do not disappoint, you guys. I mean, take a look at that. They are so cool. I love all the little cutouts. I love all the little jaggedy elements. So these, I just cut out from a lot of the backgrounds that I did during the demos this year, right? Find some backgrounds that we did with inks or oxides or anything and cut those out. But they are beautiful. They're a nice size leaf that you can just do a single leaf, and you'll see in the makes, you can just highlight a single leaf. It can be party decor, it can be used as a card, or you can layer these to create home decor. They can, you can create a wreath with them. You can create so many different things because the scale of these are actually, and it's important to kind of notice, especially from the package, right, that they're quite large, but you can always see from the die itself. But it's important to always realize that, especially if shopping online is kind of your only access to that, which is really important to understand. I believe on Sizzix site, they're starting to put the measurements again for each of the dies that they start doing. So there's like one of the slides in their page that will showcase the measurements of that. But again, one of my favorites. I love it, love it. And yeah, I just saw where someone just said, I'm sure, yeah, leaf to buy fragments, please. Yes, please link. But there are some retailers in here that are linking if they have it available. But yeah, I agree, right? Scrapbook.com, they're like gorgeous. It is gorgeous, really. Let's just take a minute and look at that detail. Wow. And the cool thing about a Thinlit also is I like the fact that we can cut through texture paste as well as mixed media, as well as watercolor cardstock. Great. So that's really, for dies, those are fall. But we also have some 3D. So this next one, this is a 3D Impresslit. Now, there has been talk, and I just want to confirm that all of the 3D Impresslits, okay, that would be all of the ones that we've done, whether they're borders, trims, stars, the Lucky Love with the heart, even the butterfly that we just did in chapter 3, and this one that we're launching today, they have all been retired. They're one and done. So it's just, we're kind of going in a different direction with the 3D Impresslits. So even this one, once they're sold out, they are gone. Once the butterfly that we launch in chapter 3, they will not be reordered. It's just a direction that Sizzix decided, and I fully support that. So it's just something that we're kind of moving on. But I want to share with you how cool this is. One of my favorites. And I saw a sneak peek from Sharon, and she said exactly the same, which, like, it's one of my favorites from the detail. So here's the thing about a 3D Impresslit, if you're not familiar with this. This is a 3D folder that will cut and emboss at the same time. So when you put in your substrate, your paper, you want to mist it. Just give it a little bit of a spritz with water, especially when you're doing 3D. Then you're going to run it through your machine 3 times, and it will cut and emboss. So first I'll just show you just the ones done out of watercolor cardstock, so you can really appreciate the detail of these leaves. The veining, the rippling, so cool. I mean, the texture, this one's stacked up, there you go. The texture, I mean, you could see even from the back, it is a sculpted leaf. So it doesn't just flatten it out and cut it. It actually sculpts this. And that's the thing about any of the 3D Impresslits. And I like to tell you this, not because I want to get you guys all freaked out and, oh, everything he does, it goes away. It's just, I really support the companies when they make decisions to just limit things or just have things for just a one and done release. And that's just the whole idea behind these. Now, you get 2 different size leaves, right? So they're in the same folder. So when you run it through, you'll always cut and emboss 2 unless you just have a smaller piece of paper. But what I really want to share with you is how you can make these look so real. You can just go in and do any of your inked paper. So look at that little splatter on there of oxide. See that little bit of white, right? Oxide spray is your friend. The color, of course, is spray stain to get that saturated ink. But they really look nice and crispy. And I love that beveled edge, that detail. But more importantly, I think for me, it's always about creating those ripply bumps within a folder, right? So it's not completely domed. You've got innies and outies. That's what really makes Sizzix 3D just so epic, in my opinion. A shout out to Ryan, who Ryan's the one that works on all my 3D stuff. And again, that's just like, that's a line drawing that he can turn into something 3-dimensional. And then look at this. Wow. This is when you take one that you've actually inked and add a little bit of resist spray. Look at how it just changes the overall look, feel, color. So resist spray, if you guys haven't tried it, even if you're not doing any resist, it is a great gloss, so to speak, a great shine, because it can really take paper or cardstock that already looks great, but it just gives it so much more depth. It brings out all of the different values and hues in the color. But I really like that shine, and all you do is spray a little bit on, let it dry, or dry it with a heat tool if you want, and you're done. So see, the back is still just white paper. Crazy, right? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Yes, I see there's some stores in here. Shout out to the stores that are showing up for the lives. Thanks. Yeah, definitely say where your store is located, because there might be some people that are looking to shop local. All right. So here's our next 3D. This is a 3D texture fade. This is a background. This is Foliage. And the great thing about this one is it is not your typical leaf, right? So this could be something that definitely has a fall vibe to it, but it's just good overall texture for even those industrial makes. You're going to see some beautiful cards created with it. But this was inspired by some dried leaves that were stuck in concrete. That's really what this is. And so you can see all those pressed leaves. We got that great stone texture. But the cool thing about this 3D, and actually several of them, is that you get a completely different effect on the other side, right? So whenever you're embossing your paper, check both sides. Because this one, we've got those leaves that are raised, where it just kind of looks like it's sitting above the surface. This really, of course, is the design, where it's that impressed design. But gosh, you could use either one, right? Innie and outie. The other thing to know, of course, you always want to spray your paper. You want to do your passes. Depending on your cardstock, you see kind of like these little wear out holes. That just is. I never mind that, because I want to push this texture to the nth limit. And I just think that people are not embossing cards and hanging them in a window, you're always going to put it on something. So even if you have like I call them a little blowout, you're never going to see that. So don't panic if that happens. Just proceed with your inking, stick those down, and off you go. But really, can you see that texture on both sides? I mean, come on. Very cool. Okay. Another thing in the 3D realm that I am so happy with are the 3D minis. Now, these were launched in Chapter 3. We did a couple of minis. I think we did roses, and I think we did, maybe it was botanical. Not sure. I think those are the ones we did. So that was the first time that we took the actual size of a folder and we shrunk it down. Now, are these fall? Are these Halloween? No, but yes, they are. And the reason is because I was not going to wait until next year for these to come around in the minis. I'm like, these are two of my favorites. I need them to be in minis, and we're just going to add them in Halloween. And you're going to see what a couple of the makers did with them, which is incredibly cool. Two of my favorite 3Ds, right? I absolutely love the look of these, right? The mechanics in Foundry, just very cool to see the effect. And this is what's even more surprising, is the detail that can be achieved. So this is exactly the same art from the original 3D folder. It's just shrunk down. But take a look at what you can achieve. Whoa. On that smaller scale. And you'll see why you would want some smaller scale for a lot of different elements, but totally different effect from just white cardstock to taking some metallic cardstock, or this is just Ranger foil tape, put on a piece of cardstock and then run through, or you can take metallic cardstock, a little black distress paint, let it dry, little steel wool, and you're in business. Isn't that great? And then take a look at this one. Oh, come on. So cool, right? Look at the detail. Look at all those little rivets and screws and all of that in this folder. Very cool for a lot of your makes. And even if this isn't for Halloween, or if you're going to use it in the Christmas season, you'll still have it for all year. But this is why I wanted to release it. So you got that, right? What is the size of the mini? It's small by small. I'm going to say, I don't really know. Mari, can you grab a ruler real quick? I'll measure it real quick just to show you. Maybe somebody already knows, but it's small by small. I don't think it's ATC size, so thanks. There we go. 2 3/4, 4 1/4. There you go. There's your mini size. Thanks, Mario. You're welcome. That is your mini size of the folder. Very, very cool. Love it. I love the whole scale down. And not only the detail, but really even all the little dents and ripples that we would normally see in a large 3D. It's good to go. Okay, so now we're going to kick off real Halloween stuff. And this is just a concept that we're trying this year. We're going to try to see if you guys like it. If you like it, we may do more of it. If you don't, well, it never needs to happen again. But we did do this one for Halloween, and we have another one for Christmas. Again, just an idea to see if you guys are interested. This is called the Vault series. And what the Vault series is I definitely hear when many makers are new to the Sizzix world, right? Or you are kind of expanding your die cut selection, and there are certain designs that you've missed. You've missed it along the way, okay? And the problem with that is that dies are not going to come back. Even though you email and you're like, please bring this back, please. It's not going to happen. That's just something that I can't do. It is what it is. But the design itself has merit, and we can kind of change things up a little bit. And that's what we're doing on the Vault. And so the Vault is bringing back designs from different dies, different collections, reimagining them, resizing them. So they might be, usually they're a little smaller. We don't go bigger than the design. So they're scaled down a little bit. They're not all scaled down the exact same percentage, so I can't tell you how much smaller, because it really just depends on what I wanted to use it for. But here you can see in the Vault some favorites. They're the ghosts. These are the little tombstones. This was from one of the Village collections. We've got that raven that was in there. We've got a gate. This one used to be a much longer gate. We've got these trick-or-treaters. This used to be a decorative strip. Remember those, right? Those really long strip dies. And we kind of reconfigured these trick-or-treaters. The little moon and bat, that was from another one. One of the tattered banners, again, a decorative strip die, one of my favorites. And so we just captured a lot of these and put them into one set. So this way you can get your hands on some of those older designs. But even if you have the older designs, this is still great because you're getting the design maybe in a new size, maybe even in a new configuration, right? Because like the Christmas, we actually brought back some some SRD designs and put them in this thinlet set. So we'll have to see. Again, these are the only two that I have, and if you guys like it, we can continue to do more of that.
People are loving the vault idea.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great because it's the balance. It's not that I certainly don't try to ignore that. I just want to do whatever we can. A little hair on there. Just do whatever we can to kind of bring designs back. So we've got the ghosts. I love those little tombstones. You're going to see why those are going to be really important. And then, of course, I love this little tattered moon and bat. This, again, one of my favorites because you can stamp on this, do a rub on. You can just kind of bend the ends and you get a great tattered little banner, or cut it. And then you've got two little flags that you can wrap around toothpicks. Very cool. I love the raven, love the branch, and I love that little iron gate. So that is the vault for Halloween. Then another one. This is a favorite. Now this is going to be one that's going to make a lot of people happy, and it's going to make the rest of you probably a little anxious, but it is what it is. Like I say, you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit, right? This is Ghost Town 2. I say Ghost Town 2 because Ghost Town 2 is this great little collection of these very tattered little buildings with all the little boarded up windows or just kind of busted out doors. Cool little buildings that are a little dilapidated here. But this was an extension of the original Ghost Town. Now Ghost Town, this has been retired. This die is no longer available. You might find it in certain places, but this has been retired. It's not coming back. It's not a vault. So this is an extension of Ghost Town. So if you already have Ghost Town, the original one, these are new buildings, but they are scaled to work with this. But if you don't have it, you can see that just in and of itself, it is a great die. But I just wanted to explain why it's called Ghost Town 2, because yes, there was an original Ghost Town. But you can see here that in addition to the buildings, we added a little cemetery, right? Cool little mountain. I love these creepy clouds with the moon. So even if you didn't use the buildings, I mean, what a great background for Halloween, or I mean, I even think this would be great at Christmas to put it in like a starry sky. I just love the cloud and the moon die. I mean, that part really is probably my favorite aspect of all of this, right? That's what I like. But again, it's just good to know that if you have this one, you can kind of build and extend your Ghost Town this Halloween with Ghost Town 2. Cool die, really fun. So those are just kind of our ways of just playing around with older designs and how can we make those fresh and new. But now we're going to get on to completely new. And I love pushing the limits of spec. And I will talk about this every time I do Sizzix. Spec is really the specifications that when a design is turned into a die, there are certain limitations that we have. How tight of a bend can we get? How thin can the blades of even a thinlet go close together so it will still cut and the material still comes out? There's all these different variables. And when I started with Sizzix, that spec was like, it was very chunky, very clunky. And I just wanted to continue to fine tune and add little details. And I love this one. This is Toil and Trouble. And they are two fun little witch silhouettes. I love just how she looks. I love just her little leg kicked up here. This one that's sitting now, this one on the broom is separate, right? I mean separate like it's a separate die, but it comes in the set. But she could be sitting anywhere on a stack of books. She could be sitting on the cauldron, right? She doesn't have to, and this broom is sized that if you stand it up, it can go into her hand. There's that little mouse. We did a couple of really fun, great cats. I love seeing the skulls cut out of the cauldron, and of course, a couple of bats. And I just love the style of this because so when I talked about spec, it's just getting those really thin areas, you know, like in her arms, so her arms don't look like tree trunks. I just like the idea. I love how the hat tapers to the edge, right? So we didn't just come to a point, we actually made an angle, and then it's got that little kick up at the end. Those are all the details that really matter to me. Like even in the broom handle, all those little nuggety knot holes in there, the ability to cut out the cat eye and just leave that little pupil in there. Those are all details that to me really matter. I mean, even down to the mouse, like look at that. Those are two tiny little punch holes in that thin die, but you can at least get eyes. And again, that little mouse is separate, so she doesn't have to hold the mouse. She could, yeah, anything, and the cat could fit on the broom. There's so many options for Toil and Trouble, but I like that. I love it. It's very kind of bewitched, right? I like it. I do. Then we're going to get into Colorize, and I will say that for Halloween, Man, I kicked up the Colorize. Colorize, some of you love or hate, but I'm going to tell you this, that not all Colorize are complicated, right? I will say that when we first launched Colorize, it was very complicated. That Santa was like 50 some pieces. We have learned so much and we continue to learn. And so Colorize, although they're detailed, they are very simplified. And for those makers that have made with the Colorize for this release, they're going to be able to tell you that really we put in a lot of thought every time we do Colorize to try to eliminate pieces. So they are easy. Some tricks that I would share is that whenever you're doing cardstock, do adhesive, right? Run it through a Xyron if you have a Xyron to put adhesive on the back, or use Sizzix adhesive sheets. And you would do that before you die cut the cardstock. This way, every piece is a sticker. You have no fussy glue, no nothing. It's so easy to put it together. The other thing is if you have something with a lot of colors and you don't want to cut it that many times out of all the different color cardstock, you can cut all your pieces out of white, whether it's watercolor paper or whatever. Use your markers, use your inks, use whatever to color those individual pieces because the color is still referenced on the back of the die. Or don't follow the color reference. You, do your own thing. But this guy, he is Mr. Bones. And what I love about him, of course, is a skeleton. And so the other thing that's important to know about a Colorize now is that we've been starting with a base shape, right? And again, I go back to the original Santa. He wasn't a base shape. His body was separate than his head and people didn't know how to build it. So all the Colorize that we do now starts with a base shape. So you're going to start with a full-on skeleton, and then you have that anchor point to build on. So you can see all of his bones, like the legs, it's actually one piece. So you could just stop with one layer if you want a silhouette of a skeleton. But every time you build, you see that you get a whole nother level of detail. Another thing that's important to me, you may not care, this totally matters to me, is in the die process, you have to have poke holes, right? You have to have those little holes that are in the back of a die so you can use a die pick to poke out the paper. Well, for me, poke hole placement is critical. So when we're doing it, like I want the poke holes at the joints, right? If we got to put them in there, let's put them at the finger joints. So you're going to see them no matter what because it's going to be that pressure. But see, at least it's not like right in the middle of his head or right off the side of his nose. It's in a place that would actually make sense to the design because you need it as part of the actual tool. So that's just something that is important that we do. But I love the detail look of his head and how we create that depth by stacking all those layers, right? You see that on his face. So the pieces, very simple. And this guy, of course, we wanted to give him just a little headstone, some little dirt to stand by. You can use it or not. He is great. So that is Mr. Bones. Very cool. Oh, this next guy. Oh my gosh. Just had to get both of these pieces. Okay. This guy, Colorize. Okay. Pumpkinhead. Pumpkinhead. Wow. When you see what the makers did, he is hilarious. And here is why. First of all, he's just dressed to perfection, right? With his little tucks and tails, his little bow tie, and that all these little pieces. So like if we wanted his bow tie to be straight, we can straighten it because that's the other beauty about using any type of adhesive sheet. You can still maneuver it versus glue where you're stuck, okay? But if you look at this Colorize, we've got this guy and he's got that great little bone for a neck, and then we have the pumpkin head. Now the great thing about the pumpkin head, of course, is it is a separate piece. So let me just take it out of his hand. There we go. So he can just be, there we go. He can just be whatever, right? He can have something hanging over his arm, right? Maybe you want him to be holding, I don't know, maybe you have the ideology bouquet and he's going to be holding some black roses or whatever. You can put anything in his arm. His head obviously can fit in his arm. That's why we did it. Let me stick this down with the adhesive so I don't rip off his hand. There we go. See, stuck down. But his head is to scale where, of course, you can put it, you can see how his shoulders are pointed up. Very cool. But that sits right in there. So if you wanted to put that head on his body, there you go. That is why he is Pumpkinhead. He's great that you can use it. It's like the Headless Horseman. You can use him like that. Yeah, he can hold Mr. Bones. You're right. He can hang over the side. But that's a great thing. A lot of makers even just liked the pumpkin, right? They just use this because it is a great little size jack-o'-lantern for a lot of makes. You can put it in front of Ghost Town or any of that. But that's the cool part of this particular die. You've got this great body. Obviously, you can put this in his arms and you can put his hand over there. or you can see that the reason we've given those really pronounced shoulders and notched out is because his head will fit right in there into that space. Okay, really cool. A very fun, very simple Colorize. And I'll point this out, but I'll talk a little bit more in other Colorize. But you can see even on the pumpkin, right? Normally early Colorize, anytime you had those highlights, you had to stick all those tiny little dots of paper. Now we just do a cutout so it reveals the base layer. So now we're kind of building from dark to light. So all of your dark areas create more of a dramatic shadow in there. All right, love this guy, he's fun. So speaking of the dramatic shadow in dark, this is Colorize Pumpkin Patch. And these guys, well, they're cute. I know a lot of people, they like the steel rule dies of pumpkins. So we did an old mover and shaper that were pumpkins and you can knock in the faces, but of course those are very limited to the design scale. That was definitely the inspiration of this one. I even did a thinlet with kind of a quirky pumpkin. I love the Colorize Pumpkin Patch. Now these, of course, the base design is the pumpkin silhouette. So if you just wanted a pumpkin silhouette, the base is going to be a solid pumpkin. However, all of the other layers have the face, right? That's going to be a jack-o'-lantern. So there's not like layer pieces where you don't have the face. Could you save the cutouts and try to put them back in? Yes, but you're still going to see the lines. But if you just wanted a pumpkin, you would still have the silhouette because the silhouette obviously is going to be your base layer. But take a look at how these are designed. This is what I wanted to tell you, that when we started, if you kind of look at this, our base layer, just to kind of show you how the Colorize is built up, is going to be yellow. So we would cut the whole thing out of yellow first. That's our base foundation. Then our next layer would be this orange, this bright orange right here. So you can see that outlines it. Then we wanted to add a shadow. So then we went darker orange, but see how we utilize the cutouts to add those highlights from that previous layer. Okay. Oh, sorry, I missed a layer here. That's our dark drop shadow. That's under here. So that's going to be yellow's layer 1, this bright orange layer 2, this dark layer 3, and this on top. So it creates that depth, that design, without all those tiny little pieces. Same thing even in the stem. We've got a dark green and the light green with the cutouts, and then we even have a couple layers on the bats. The cool thing about Colorize, you can do whatever you want to create, right? Whatever elements you want, you can go for it when it comes to adding these pieces. I see a lot of people asking about sizes of design. Again, hopefully on Sizzix website, they have the sizes now because maybe you'll see in perspective when you see some of the makes, you're going to see perspective as far as how it works in a vignette, but I can't go through and do all the measurements, but hopefully they'll be on Sizzix site. But very, very cool to have some very happy pumpkins for Halloween.
So there was a lot of questions about the cardstock that you were using?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I just saw cardstock.
Oh, so cardstock, I use a lot of different cardstocks. I use the Ideology, the original Ideology craft stock. That's the one that had this linen texture. The new craft stock is smooth. Sizzix also has a line of colored cardstocks and they have a bazillion colors. So that's just what I use. But I honestly, guys, I buy cardstock everywhere because sometimes I want texture and you'll see some pieces I use watercolor paper. Sometimes I'll use ink stuff that I do, like with distress mixed media or distress watercolor. But all this linen stuff, this is the original Ideology craft stock before we went smooth. It's funny that, you know, now that we go smooth, I use a lot of texture on that, but I have tons of pads of that. And it's still available on the marketplace before it's gone. But yes, that's what I use. Everything is run. I prefer, I know Sizzix does adhesive sheets and I have adhesive sheets with them. And I like them for small things. But all of my big makes, I just get take a sheet of cardstock, cut it in half, run it through my Xyron, and I'm off because it's easy to have already pre-adhesive paper to kind of go with. All right. So this one, man, oh man, oh man, do I love this, because to me, this is probably one of the most versatile ones that I've done for Halloween, because this is great for Christmas. This would be great all year. This would be great for any kind of wintry looks as well as fall and Halloween. This is Colorize Candlelight. And what this one is, take a look at these, you guys. Take a look at the detail. We have those beautiful little drippy candles, very simple, 1 die, 2 dies, right? Just 2 little layers. There again, you see the little poke holes at the end of the drips. Now you know why we did it. See, that's right. And even the candle has all those little ripply waves. The flame, those 2 layers, we've got the solid and then a little outline. But take a look at these candlesticks. This is what I'm talking about utilizing the cutout for highlights. So these highlights that you see are not tiny little pieces you have to place. It's actually just taking the color and you've got the base, then the light brown, then the dark brown. 3 layers, and you have all of this detail. We also included some drop shadow. We haven't really done drop shadow in any die sets before, but I thought for candlelight, adding that shadow was really important. So we've got these 2 basically candle stands, right? Pillars. We've got the candlesticks themselves, the candles. Then we have this lantern. And again, talking about spec, look at how thin that paper is. The cool thing about this lantern is the candle is this candle. So you could put a candle in it or not. You could take the lantern and you could put flowers coming out of it in spring. You can do the lantern in white so it looks shabby chic, right? You don't have to, that's what I was saying. It's like one of the most versatile dies when you start looking at design. This could be a cake stand, right? You could take a little birthday cake. You could do anything you want to these elements because the candles are separate. So the way the die works is you would create this, that would be on your die set. You have your other candlestick, you've got, or your candle stand, candlestick, lantern, and then the drop shadow. So really beautiful with all of that detail. And of course you could add a lot of texture to this. You could do glossy accents, which of course I would. I just, when it comes to packaging, I try to limit the amount of embellishing that I do because I think it's really important as a maker to fall in love with the shape and not fall in love with the accents to something, right? Because that's something you can do. You could add glossy accents, you can add glitter, whatever, but you need to fall in love with the shape or the design. So that is Colorize Candlelight. Now, this one might be a familiar face because you've probably seen a lot on the sneak peeks because he is a definite fave of the makers. This is Colorize and this is the Count. And the Count, well, he's just a Colorize marvel, let me just tell you, because this time we really explored how many layers could we add to a certain area of the die to create depth, which doesn't really set it off balance, okay? So again, he is one piece, but one thing that we did different that I wanted is his cape, okay? This whole cape colorized layer is separate. Because if you didn't want him to be a Count, maybe you want him to be just kind of a fun butler or Jeeves, you know, something like that, you don't have to have the cape on there. So his body is still your base die, but then there's also the base part of the cape. And so you can choose to utilize the cape with him or not because he's very classic, all right? But you can see all the little details. So his buttons are actually button holes. So they're going to be cut out. You don't have to worry about gluing those on. That's a cutout layer. The pinstriping in his pants, the little fold and ripple in that cape right there. There you go. But this is what I'm talking about where we explored, okay? Look at the depth between his head, all of those little age spots, and his eye socket, right? So we started cutting that out layer after layer after layer to really give his face all of the details from that design, from the little scowl, that little eyelash that pops out over there, the way that his eye is actually just like, almost like a little comma, right? Or an apostrophe. Those are my faves. Just put out right there with that little notch. But you can see that his eye socket has really intense depth because every color layer, that area is cut out. And you don't really see this guy until you kind of put him together. That's when he really takes that personality on. But that's what I love about the detail is this is really that simple like 1, 2, 3 layer. And this is just, you know, layer 4, layer 5, layer 6, just as you build it up. And it was very fun to be able to say, okay, we can highlight one section of a design with more layer to create depth without having to do it over the entire thing. Because that's what we've done before, like with the pumpkins, you know, everything we did was over the entire thing versus just kind of scaling that design down to highlight it. So I do love it. We always try something different when it comes to design and see like what can we get away with, how does it make it easy to use? Because again, I'm trying to get away from all those little fussy little pieces, and he is just, he's amazing. He's got just such a great look. I can't wait to see a different side of him, a different personality where people use him after Halloween. It's great. All right, then the last design before we get into the makes is a doozy. That's what I'm gonna tell you. It is a doozy. This is Costume Party, okay? So this concept was, wouldn't it be cool if we could create a Colorize, but it wasn't just one thing, like one character? Could we create colorized characters and still have them detailed, have them pretty small but not too small, and how do we kind of do that in a die set? And so This costume party, there's 28 dies in here, but this is what I want to just kind of point out so you guys don't freak your freak. This is my set, so I haven't put it on my magnet sheet yet. But just so you know, so when you get this, if you get this, here is my advice, because costume party has this mummy, right? This vampire and this monster. So when you get the dies, right, they're going to come in this little poly bag just so all the little pieces don't come out. You would dump this out, and you're going to look at the back of the die, right? So Colorize not only has the color, but these guys have their character name. So you're going to take monster, and you're going to do your monster pile. So that would be like, you know, the monster layer. Those are some of the pieces. It tells the colors, right? And the cool thing about Colorize too, if you're also new to Colorize, Sizzix has these wonderful rendering videos that they have on YouTube that shows kind of a digital assembly process of each color. So you can watch it and pause, and you can see how this is built in real time. It's digital, so you don't have to, there's no voiceover or anything. You can just watch it to see how the pieces come together. But the first thing you would do is look at the back and find the character, even on the small one, see, monster, and you would sort all your pieces by monster, there's the mummy, and the vampire. And you would sort it by character, and that is how I would store it on my magnet sheets, is by that. This way, if you just want to cut the mummy, you would have all your mummy pieces. If you just want the monster, that's why when it comes to this, I didn't do it by color in the entire trio. I did each one as its own design with its own color layer, right? So they're good. There's going to be a black for the monster, but also a black for the vampire, but those would be separate based on the character. And I just thought that that would be, I don't know, just kind of a different way to do Colorize, because maybe we can start doing smaller, more assorted Colorize sets instead of just the character. I still like the character because I like having that big character to build, and these guys really are not that tedious. They do have a few smaller pieces. Obviously, when you go small, you still need some detail, but let me point this out just to show you. I'm going to put these back in the bag before I lose them though. Like I said, this is my set. No, I got it. Thank you very much. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's look at these guys a little closer. So again, you can see that we took advantage of the cutouts. So even on the mummy, all those little pieces, those are cutouts to reveal. Really the only detail that you have on these guys, pretty much the eyes, right? Now these eyes, some people don't bother with these little bits of paper. Some people just go in with a pen or a marker, totally fine. If you didn't want to put the teeth in his mouth, you didn't have to. Same thing with the vampire. If you didn't want him to have teeth, you don't need to have the teeth. Or if you want his eyes to be a different color, that's a great thing. The Colorize is really just a reference of color, but you can still do whatever you want to create. So this guy, like the little buckle, even his buttons, his tooth, a lot of little detail that you could eliminate, but it's really not that bad to do. I love the stitching. See those little dies for the stitching? Oh my gosh, that's so cute. He is so much fun. They're really actually easy to do. This way, when I do them, it does take a lot of time, because for packaging, I actually cut this out of so many different layers of color. I know that there's many makers out there that are Colorize pros now. They just got it and they're like, I've got this, I'm totally good. I'm just gonna ink my paper. I even think Keisha Charles actually talked about just like inking paper. Sharon has a whole organization system of having all this color cardstock at the ready, adhesive. And that's really a great way that you can tackle these pieces, is if you don't have access or you don't want all this color cardstock, just do this out of your inked backgrounds or cut it all out of white watercolor cardstock, something that you can color, and color each layer with your favorite medium. So there's a lot of different ways that you can approach Colorize. It's just one of those things that the more you do it, the easier it is. Honestly, it just becomes super easy to do. Okay, it's time to get into the creative fun. Are you guys ready for the makes? It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. Yeah, I'll start with this one. Okay. I have baskets everywhere. So I'll probably try to go in the order of how I showed the dies. Maybe it'll just be, might not make sense at this point, but I'm still going to try it. So let's just start with some fall makes. I'll just kind of bring these in. A shout out to all of the makers. Amazing job once again with how they take a design and really bring it to life, create something absolutely amazing and magnificent. So I definitely encourage you to follow the makers. I know many of them have plans to share this throughout the season. There might be a couple people that do some sharing this weekend, but I think many of them are saving like their tutorials and stuff as we get closer into the season. Right now it's just about launching the product, and then you'll see more and more tutorials as we go. And the cool thing again about the makers is everyone has, well, just like a different way or a different style, and they stay true to that every single time. So we're going to start with this card. Sharon created this using Countryside. Now, of course, we talked about Countryside being that whole fall thing, but this right here, perfect example that you can use it any other time of the year. Use a stamp, hello friend, use your favorite colors, and just make a very bright and cheery card using Countryside, right? So that is the importance of watching this live, right? Seeing, not actually live, but watching the live, because seeing the inspiration, that's what it's all about. Because if you sometimes see a die in the packaging, you're like, yeah, I don't really do much fall, moving on. And then you see this, you're like, whoa, hold on, very cute. I love the bluebird color. I love the pink houses. I love the orange stars, the purple trees. That's really a fun design that I could use for a friend, right? That's what it is. That's the important thing to know when you're viewing different inspiration. Anita created this. I love the idea of taking this design, and here's what's really interesting about like what she created with this background. If you look at the background, there's a whole lot going on because everything has like a different look to it, right? Maybe it's got some metallic in there for the trees, or a little bit of stickles like I talked about, a little sparkly because Anita likes to get her bling on. But what I thought was really interesting are the layers cut out from the background die, right? So if the background is cut out of that black layer, then you tear or cut a piece of paper, cut that background again and layer it, and cut it again and layer it, and cut it again and layer it. Like those hillsides are layers and layering up a background. I thought that was very clever to take a background die and layer it up, right? And then adding some of those leaves, right? Look at those beautiful 3D leaves as an accent, but just two very different looks for the same die. What could be better than that, right? You can go colorful, you can go fall, and just that idea of layering up your background, really cool just to kind of see how pieces can go together. That's what it's all about. Now, when we get into texture, it was very interesting. I'm going to just kind of pull all of these out. It's very interesting to see how people utilized the new 3D, the foliage. And I love the different look and feel from these cards. A lot of them were paired with some older dies, right? Some older leaf dies. I love seeing that vintage varsity. Many makers use this font. This is the font we just did in chapter 3 because, of course, as I said, it pairs so well. It is not just a rah-rah college font. It's a font that has some great detail because that varsity has that stitching detail. So you can see for fall just really how beautiful, you know, everything is. That's the whole idea with any of these elements. So this first series, and I'll pull these off to the side because this is kind of a series. Kath created this, and I always say that, you know, there's a lot of times that a maker will make several versions of an idea, and I always love that because I think it is so inspirational. So she created these cards again using that background. So look at the texture. Now you'll notice throughout these cards that sometimes the background really highlights the design. Other times, depending on how a product is used over the top of it, it creates a totally different effect, and maybe you don't notice the leaves as much, but it's an amazing texture. That's what I was saying about that. So here, Kath included the new mica stains, right? Can you see that beautiful mica in the background, the distressed mica stains? I love the effect of that, and then the accent of the metallic, right? But then going into the background, now by treating the background differently, right? Not going in with so much metallic, really doing some ink. It still has the mica. So let me just show you this one so you can see that little bit. Look at that mica, right? So on this one, that little bubbling cauldron, that little spritz of mica is an accent, but this is embossed. And then when you ink over it, you're able to really showcase the leaves. Very interesting to see how a design can have a total different transformation because of how things are used. Now, again, using elements, right? Ghost Town 2, using the clouds from there, and this is for someone going into a new home, right? Maybe they've upgraded from, you know, their old home to something new. I think that's a very clever way to incorporate these dies that were released for fall and Halloween, or just embracing the true fall style. Now this, you can see, is using the other side, right? Remember when I talked about the innie and the outie of a folder and the importance that as a maker, play around. So here everything is debossed. Here those leaves have that raised effect. Again, inks, there you can see that beautiful mica just kind of splattered on there this time, and then using it with the 3D Impresslit, beautiful. And I love just seeing that font. This time she outlined using that die, just cut it a second time with that outline of the metallic. Isn't that beautiful? Just to really see 3 different cards using the same background, but a totally different effect, right? Metallic, beautiful, looks very textured. So now your focal point are really the leaves. Here you use that inside, so you kind of get that relief of the leaves. And here you really want them to be prominent, so you flip it over and you add the color to it and you really notice it. There you go, right there. There's your picture of what makes 3D different. And you can do that with many folders that you have if you haven't played around with them. It is an amazing, amazing design. I love it. All right. These, Anita created these. I love the colors, the rich colors that that she uses. And I've got one sideways, one up. There we go. Let's do them right, Holtz. Okay. Look at that background. I love just seeing that metallic. Anita does a lot of tutorials. She shares all of the ways that she creates it. I love that frame Impresslit. Again, also retired, but beautiful design to create that. Using, these are ideology clipping stickers, so you can create a little quote in there, but look at those colors, right? Isn't that just so stunning, so pretty to see those? And again, when you take a look at the design, we've got the innie and the outie, right? You guys maybe don't notice that. This one, we've got those raised leaves, the inside. Very important to play around with your folders. I love those colors. Whoa, rich and beautiful. Love these, Anita. So, just so warm in fall, right? Very cool. Then these just really, well, always just brings a smile, because I always say about the makers just doing how they do. So Keisha created these. Keisha is a very colorful. She loves just all of the colors of the rainbow. And so I love seeing a background that just took on a whole different vibe. Still for fall, still can incorporate fall elements, but that doesn't mean that you have to stick to only a warm palette of color. So creating these backgrounds on these fall cards, just using your different colors of distress, creating a beautiful watercolor background. You can use ideology elements if you want to accent with your favorite ephemera or any ideology trinkets, or you can just go full on with your dies. You can incorporate your stamps by doing embossing, and you can even print out your own sentiments. I thought it was really clever to just, you know, take a word and cut out a couple elements. But, you know, that's really when you have that like, oh, I've got this idea. It wants to say, yeah, I need it to say this. But here, again, that's ideology right there. So that's the label sticker. So there's a lot of ways that you can take a die or even a pattern and you can mix it with product in your stash. I mean, I know every time we have new product, it doesn't mean you have to just have everything, get everything, and only use what's new. It's an extension of saying, by adding this new thing, this background, look at all the opportunities you have of using stuff that is older, right? Using an older set of stamps, or using some of your embellishments or trinkets that you haven't done, or some of your favorite stickers. And that's really the whole inspiration about making, is to make just something that is just pretty ordinary, extraordinary, by just mixing and matching all those elements. But I thought that the colors, wonderful. Love it, Keisha. Next, we're going to get into the Impresslits, and you're going to see a lot of crossover here or there, right? I try to bring some stuff in, but then, you know, there's a lot of stuff that uses stuff from different elements, because the makers, well, they get all the goods. So they have the ability to mix and match. And I'm always surprised to see what they pair with what. All right. So this first card collection, this is from Jen, and this actually surprised me. I actually did a double take. I'm like, Jen Shirkus, she made all this brown? Love it. Love it. Love it, because it's got a great fall vibe. So this really highlights this oak leaf Impresslit. Okay. And you can see, I'll move this out just so I can move all of these cards out. I love seeing the inky backgrounds, but again, using your favorite mixes. So you can do those warm backgrounds where you're stamping. You can throw in some oxide. These backgrounds have this, let me just find, like, this one has, like, see the mica stain in there, right? I always have to bring it close to the camera so you can see that beautiful, beautiful, like, sheen and shimmer of the mica stain. But you can still mix in that color, right? You can still create that wonderful fluid background. And that's a thing to also know about dyes. Dyes are so user-friendly because if you're an inker or you like to play around with backgrounds and do all those things, just do it, right? If you followed any of the videos, I talk about like compartmental making, right? There's a difference between creating and making. Creating is where you just get to go out there and just be creative and do backgrounds and have no intention on what it's going to be. And then making is taking those components and making something out of it, right? Die cutting your leaves out of some backgrounds that you did, or trying a stencil on something and be like, oh, that'd be a good card. Or trying different ways of using stamps, right? Maybe you're going to do watercolor stamping, or maybe you're just going to do a full-on background stamping. Maybe you're going to do some stitching detail. Maybe you're going to add just some stamped elements. And kind of once you find your groove, you can really make a lot of things very quickly because all the components, all the inking and all that, you've already done it another time. That to me is what it's all about. And I do love seeing just that ability of transforming just something that maybe you wouldn't look at as a fall background, but then when you pair it with the right elements, you're like, there you go. And I love the shimmer of that distressed mica stain. It calls to me every time I see it on something because it's just a little bit of that shimmer. Beautiful. So I love seeing that card series. That's the important thing, just having the card series. So Zoe with a Y. So again, we have Zoe Hillman, and Zoe with a Y, Zoe Scarpelli. She's from Italy. So Zoe with a Y created this. And I think, you know, what's really cool, again, Zoe with a Y does a lot of great tutorials, a lot of videos on her Instagram to just kind of show you the assembly process of that. So taking a tag with all that texture, still using paper dolls, using all of your favorite elements, but just accent a die cut. So sometimes with people, die cuts don't have to be everything, right? And I know in the Sizzix world, it could be everything, right? But this is creating your own work and using a die cut as an embellishment or an accent. And that's really what this tag to me represents. I love seeing the texture, right? We've got those new distress pastes. I love seeing that texture paste in the background. But then just adding those leaves, it gives that tag that just uses all the everyday stuff a whole different feel for when you're making or when you're sanding or really the color. I agree. Yeah, mixy matchy. It's true. Yeah, the texture, that's it. So see, sometimes you'll get those elements and you think, what am I going to do with stuff? Well, a texture paste is not always through a stencil, right? It's just about adding texture. Something that's going to, like to me, because now this piece of paper just looks like plaster that's kind of chipped away. That to me is really very cool. And I love seeing that side of creating, is just having that texture. I agree. I see all the love. Yeah, the grunge backgrounds, just, it's very, very good. Very cool. This card, Sharon created slimline cards. Beautiful, beautiful. Look at that. Look at that Impresslit on a slimline card, right? So taking your backgrounds, your favorite colors, look at all that mica stain in action, even the splattering on the background, and then just pairing it with a stamp. I love seeing how that's stacked up there. That's really beautiful, Sharon. I love just how those leaves can be applied to a background. And really, I think what kind of captured my attention is seeing the leaves, but then just how you like chopped them off, right? That's the cool thing. So it really becomes a background. Not everything has to be just kind of floating around. You can just anchor it and then just cut it off. And some people, you know, they freak. They're like, no, I don't want to cut off the leaf. Of course you do. Just cut it off. Then you'll use the other half for another card. It can come in from the other way. But that is beautiful. And then that little dimension that you added. Yep. So just using, I mean, it's that one skew. It's that one leaf. That's it. And then you pair it with your favorite stamps and backgrounds, and there you go. That's what I love about Impresslits. That's why I always like that. I love the detail of that. And Impresslits can be paired with so many different things. Jan created this card, beautiful big card. Again, this could be something that is totally frameable. Anything that's this scale, you can certainly put into a frame or mount it onto a board. But I love seeing there is, look at that candlelight. See what I mean? I love that candlelight behind a little bit of acetate just to create that faux glass. You guys see up here? There you go. That's that grit paste, or as Zoe calls it, crypt paste, right? Just seeing that little bit of texture on there, the detail. And sometimes people don't know, like when it comes to that paste, right? I know that when we see most of the time people are using paste, especially when I'm using it, a lot of times I'll use it through a stencil. But adding that little bit of texture, and I'll go back to this tag, right? It's very thin on here, right? You can see how thin, but then by picking it up, you get some great texture on there. But just adding a little bit with your finger just to really highlight and give that lantern an eerier effect. I love this lace baseboard frame. This is an Ideology frame. Look at how beautiful that is with the detail there. You can see the 3D folder, right? That foliage in the background, and then there we have that impressive, all those leaves. And you guys see that little shimmer? You see it? Love that accent. Just those mica stains. Little flickering candle goes a long way, does it not? Right? Absolutely cool. And then just put it on a background. It's just awesome. Love it. I love really seeing what people create with die cuts. It always blows me away. Sizzix is just one of those things that, you know, a shape is a shape, but when you see a shape become something else, then it turns into magic, right? Now, I say magic, it's a good segue for this. Vicky created this one, and magic is really all about the finishes that she does. And I do believe she's going to be sharing this on her blog, because if you look at this background, I swear guys, it looks like it is hammered metal. It looks like this bronze kind of relief in there. Do you see that? That foliage, and then there are the leaf fragments, and again, those look like they've been kind of laser cut out of metal, but that's just like alcohol inked Yupo. But that background effect, just really, really stunning. And I love the colors of this, right? You see a lot of fall. Usually the fall palette is very warm. I always associate that with, you know, rust and mustard and all that. But this palette really kind of, this speaks to me. It's a great jam to see utilizing a lot of fall elements in a cool palette, but it totally works for the season. And then of course that little metallic sticker, little Ideology. I love that, seeing the foiled sticker. Isn't that beautiful? Just a stunning card. I can't wait to see how this effect is done, because I think it's really, really good. Then as we're talking about the whole idea of leaf fragments, and that again is just about, I'm going to start here and just kind of bring this in because it's a big one, right? Look at the leaf fragments, and just when I talked about creating something home decor size, that's about taking components and just building on whatever scale you want to create. So Sharon created this. This is an etc. tag, right? Stampers Anonymous etc. tag. There's actually bigger tags that we have in the line, so you can make it as big as you want. But this is just showing, like, if you wanted to do something for just a gift for fall, maybe it's not Halloween. It could just be something where you incorporate your favorite stamp. Maybe it's you can do handwriting, and you have beautiful handwriting that you can write on there, or maybe you put on a vinyl sticker on there. So many different elements, but look at how these leaf fragments really are just layered and bent and folded and just kind of cascaded on that whole thing. And again, you're seeing all that shimmer. That's all from the new Distress Mica Stain, because the makers got it way, way early. They've been using it on all their makes for months, which has been really good. I love seeing how, and I mentioned that last week when we did it, like, you're gonna really see that product used on actual makes, and it doesn't have to just be about swatch or a background. It makes for a beautiful element, because that's a nice thing about combining the brands and the products. Isn't that stunning? So stunning. Whew, yeah, I know it looks like leaves blown in the wind. I agree. So as I was mentioning about, like, just different ideas, okay, different ways that you want to create. So Anita created this, and that's the whole thing about simplicity. You can still take these leaves and do so many beautiful effects with these leaves just to use as a tablescape, right? This could be something that you just put on your mantle or on your dining room table or whatever, just to kind of scatter them around. And there's a lot of great detail. Anita actually created these with Yupo, so they have a great kind of flexibility. I used a lot of different mediums on there to get just that beautiful sheen and sparkle. But this is something that can be used year after year after year. And because these are done in that thinner Yupo, they're just going to be far more indestructible when you're working with it. But again, you could do this out of cardstock. But I just love the idea of creating some pieces that, yeah, maybe you just want to cut leaves just to cut leaves. You don't want to put them on a card. You don't want to put them on anything. You just want something that you can put around your house as decor, and they could be any color you want. So I thought that's always a clever idea of taking this. And you can see that this is, of course, the Impresslit, but this leaf fragments, right? So mixing and matching, they all work together because they're all just different kind of leaves that you can put on there. Beautiful. I know all you want to do is make a pile of leaves. I agree. That's the thing. And that's another great way to just take your favorite backgrounds and say, okay, or maybe you're not favorite backgrounds, right? You look at those backgrounds, you're like, oh, I didn't like this. Great. Time to cut them up. All right. Brilliant idea from Yuko, right? Look at these beautiful bookmarks. So if you're looking to give something to a friend, a neighbor, just kindness, right? What a cool use for this die specifically, right? The leaf fragments, just because I think of its linear shape, creating these bookmarks are just, I think they're beautiful. So the core, the base foundation, I'm just gonna hold one up, is the cracked leather cardstock. This is the distressed cracked leather cardstock. And I think by utilizing this, she did put this onto chipboard, right? To make them thicker. But I think by using that cardstock, it really gave this a whole different look and feel, a whole different vibe to it, because it just has such a beautiful texture. So all of these, yeah, it would make a great gift tag. You can tie it onto, say, a bottle of wine. If you're going to create a gift, I have that little bit of string stuck in there. Oh no, they are stuck in there. I don't want to pull that out. You can see that it's got those little splatters, right? That little splatter of any texture. Resist, you can do a little stamping on the backgrounds. Just, it's so beautiful. Now I see each one is tied on there. See, you almost ripped it off. Be like, what are you doing, Tim? See, I love that. Tied on there. For me, I was like, oh, it's a little loose string. Yeah. Don't leave me alone. I'll start destroying stuff. But I think these are absolutely beautiful. They really are. I think it's so cool. I love that. Coworkers. And again, this is just about taking your backgrounds, doing different things with it, and cutting it up and then making something magical with it. Just very, very cool. I love the idea of a bookmark. Or yeah, if you do journals, you know, art journals, it's a great way to put it in your journal as a placeholder. Beautiful. Oh, so inspiring, right? That was really, guys, that's one basket of like 9. So telling you right now, the inspiration, you have no idea. This is going to be, I don't know, we might even need intermission on this one. Who knows? But we're going to keep going. We're going to jump right into to Halloween as we kind of move from fall into full-on Halloween, which I love. I know many of you just really love the whole making season. That would be me. I love the Halloween making season. So this, the crypt, right? This incredible texture tin. Before I even open it, we're just going to take a look at this. Zoe created this one. I just think, anyone that follows Zoe Hillman, she knows that she is in love with the new grit paste. She calls it crypt paste, and rightfully so, because look at that texture, right? From the die cuts, right? Die cutting those letters and creating that texture to putting it onto that tin. And then when you open up that tin, oh my gosh, look at the vault. So here's just some cool things about the vault. First, of course, the little ghosts that fly out. Then that gate, I love how you smash that gate, Zoe. Look at like how the bars are just kind of bent and gnarled, just very cool. And then all those tiny little tombstones to create that cemetery. And then we've got the bat. And then of course, well, yes, tiny lights for the win. Tiny lights in the back, right? So having those tiny lights in there just creates such an eerie, what a perfect little night light. I love it up. Scrunch it in my hand. That's it. That's your technique. Just scrunch it up. But see, it's those little ideas and details of really adding some dimension to a die cut, even down to layering all those headstones, right? There's only 3 in that vault series, but just by adding them and switching them up, and I think even adding that tiny light, right? Adding those tiny lights in there, it really creates that whole eerie look and vibe. Just so cool. So cool. But it's all about that grungy texture. And yeah, if you guys don't play with tiny lights, I'm telling you, when you start playing with tiny lights, you're going to want to light up everything. And then we've got some ideology skulls on the top. I know that many makers save these year after year just in their stash so they can use them. Love it. Very cool tin. So we're getting into just kind of the creepy side of things. And that's what I like, because getting your creep on is just fun. Stacy created these really charming little matchboxes, these little boo boxes as she called them. So this is using the matchbox, right? So you can take the Ideology matchbox, or you can use the Sizzix matchbox die from chapter 3 and create a whole little vignette out of them, right? So normally a matchbox, of course, you would slide this in, but just sliding this up, that's going to give you a foundational element, and it's also going to give you a little niche that you can create these little freestanding boxes, right? So charming. And so what Stacy did, again, a lot of detail. She's got that little fence kind of wrapped around. You see a little embossing in there. There's those tiny little ghosts, so cute. Little headstones in there. We've got the bats. We've got the little crescent moon, which I think is just perfect. And I love that it's on a little piece of wire. And just utilizing both elements, both components of that, just create something so perfect, so cute. Now, this tutorial, there's already a tutorial for this. This is actually on Joanne.com. So we actually do some tutorials for Joanne. You just go to their section and look up Tim Holtz, but there's already a tutorial for these. So there's inspiration everywhere, you guys, about seeing these. I think they're so clever. I love all the little detail in there. Just from paper elements, you know, I'm definitely a big embellisher. I love adding metal embellishments in chunks, but just seeing something made out of paper, that's truly inspirational. Okay, that to me is just what I love. Next, there's so much stuff. I just gotta go. So Jen created this card, very cute card, using that Vault series, using the components of that to add your background, add the little ghost, add the gate, little trick-or-treaters, and look at that little bit of sparkle. I thought it was a very clever way to use that sparkle set, just adding that little bit of glitter onto the bottom. So utilizing dies on a card and, of course, combining it with stamps or any type of printed elements. And that's the thing to know. Like you can use, Sharon created this card. You can use these pieces for any style of card. And it's just how the maker just kind of captures that whole concept and saying, okay, I'm gonna do this color. Oh, okay, I'm gonna just do a background and use the ghost and the moon and fracture the fence. But take a look at just adding, again, that little bit of texture paste, right? So even to your die cuts, because remember that texture is going to remain flexible. So taking that new texture paste and just spreading it on there, it just gave these die cut pieces that are just paper, it really made them look thick and chunky and dimensional. So if you haven't really tried paste, play around. Just remember, they don't always have to be just really super thick. A little texture goes a long way. It definitely does. I think that's a thing to always remember. Zoe with a Y created this one. I love this whole little idea of kind of a mini, well, this could be a mini flip book. This could be something that you hang up. This could be something that just sits on a table, but it just has that die cut. So you can see that the base of this, right, that's going to be that tattered banner die. That's going to be the foundation from the Vault series. There are the little ghosts on there. You got your trick-or-treaters. I love all the layers and details of that. See that little bit of sparkle in there, little texture. And then just as you flip the pages, all sorts of different elements, again, using the Raven. So it's almost like creating your own little story, right? Your own little storybook. There are the elements there. Just adding details. And I love seeing the eyelets and some mummy cloth. And I just thought it was very clever to really take some components and utilize all the different pieces into creating something totally handmade, right? Not that nothing's handmade, but you know what I mean. Like I always attest to a structure, right? I need a box to start with, or I need this. So when I see someone like actually make something dimensional from nothing, it's quite inspiring just to see that with wire and mummy cloth. I love that. Love the book. All right. This next one, I just grab one after the next, after the next, after the next, because that's what I want to do. I love it. Okay, I've got to read a little note because Kath left me a note on the back. She said this was inspired by the poem The Spider and the Fly, right? And I think that, and she said she's going to have a blog tutorial on this. And I'm always very intrigued when I see a make that clearly has detail in a story, especially like, will you walk into my parlor, said the spider to the fly. And you see just the detail right here of the layers. There's our little ghost town too. There's just the components that are in there, but take a look at this, like, because she's got, yes, there's 2 sets back there. 2 sets of tiny lights, you guys. 2 sets to light this whole thing up. Look at that frame, because we've got alcohol inked acetate in there, all the little windows. There are the tiny lights back here that are built up, but how amazing is that, right? And just the detail of using your alphabet dies to just go in and use alphanumeric to cut out and tell your story. And I think the detail, see, tiny lights for the win. Because just lighting that up and the fact that you can replace those batteries all the time is very charming. And adding that extra little element, because I'm like, oh, what is this little piece back there for? Well, that was just so it could be freestanding, which I thought was incredibly clever to add to those pieces. And you'll notice that, and you'll see just from these pieces here, that a lot of makers used the Vault series, especially with Ghost Town 2, just again from scale, right? So you've got all the different scale of the elements from Ghost Town 1, Ghost Town 2, and of course the Vault. Isn't that great? Whoa. Yeah, anytime something lights up, it's like, right? Tiny lights for the win. This one, we grab this. Jen created this card. I love seeing, again, all those different components utilized, cutting out your backgrounds. I love seeing those buildings out of just a different color of cardstock, throwing in the bats, creating that slimline, cool background card using whether distressed backgrounds, right, for your main elements, and then just doing your blending for the background. I just love that. I love seeing all the details just come together. And then you've got that little cemetery that we have in Ghost Town 2. So yeah, I'm just keeping them here because you're going to see just how the inspiration just keeps like building and building and growing and growing. This one, I've got to pick out these pieces because these are so fragile, man. I don't want to trash anybody's make, all right? So Yuko created this card. Again, you're looking at all the different details. So here we've got that Ghost Town house, and look at the texture. Look at that grit goodness, right? That beautiful night sky with those dies. Love how these gates are just kind of cut apart. And of course, these are older gate dies from that I did with Sizzix. But I love the layers here of the cemetery. And again, texture. Just a reminder, play around with that texture just a little bit, just to add those components and elements to a card. So whether you're creating a scene for a card or something frameable or something to put on your mantle, or even something like in the center of maybe a Halloween wreath that you're going to do. I love the idea of taking all of those mixed media elements and transforming your paper from something flat into something dimensional, whether that's paste or glitter or alcohol ink or changing the substrate. That to me is what's really, I think, so cool to remember about utilizing dies and using die cuts, right? So Zoe with a Y created this little piece. This is actually the top of a tombstone that we did with Stampers Anonymous, just those components, and having this piece down here. I love that shine that's on there, that little shine of embossing, that mummy cloth around there, and well, yeah, it lights up. Tiny lights for the win. So hold on, I gotta take this. I'm gonna just stick her tape down. There we go. Look at that. Look at those beautiful, here, let me just take that little bit of glue off. There you go. Look at I love that, the purple tiny lights. Look at how it just casts that wonderful, wonderful glow. So really a very cool make out of using scraps. So again, this is kind of that overlay, right? Now the tombstones, they've got the whole base, but if you used up the tag and you had these pieces, I thought that was a very clever way to use those components as an overlay to create this little light up wall hanging. Or again, I think this would be very cool in the center of a Halloween wreath because you just created that little focal point that lights up with the tiny lights. So very, very cool. So many ideas, right? So many ideas. All right, again, texture heaven. So Zoe created this one, Zoe Hillman. I love seeing that. I hope there's a tutorial, Zoe, because really, I mean, I can pull off some grit paste, but this is like next level grit right here, right? That's what that is, some next level grit, because it's just so fine in there. Mine's usually pretty clumpy, but love seeing that's kind of the full on, these are Stampers Anonymous, etc. tombstone. It's like the whole kit that has all these overlay pieces, but you can see there's the candles, and I love how they're just cut short just to kind of fit that space. And then you see the ghosts, because really, you know, they just accent the star of the show, which of course is this tombstone with all the texture around it and the color, and just having those branches kind of come in where it just makes this look like cracks and fractures in there. Just, yeah, you just want to touch it. So good. Yeah, I love seeing that, just using that tall type in there too. Grit goodness, right? It is. That's the whole idea. It's just all about texture and adding elements to it and making it however you want to make it. Make it your own. Kathy created this vignette box. Again, you can see there are elements from Vault, but there's also elements from Ghost Town. This is just using a vignette box. There is a Halloween stencil, just using some paste through that. So there you can get that wonderful texture just using paste. This, of course, tiny lights again. I love how many makers use tiny lights. There we go. Another glowing little village. That Ghost Town, it calls for tiny lights, doesn't it? Just put some vellum or any type of acetate over the window. Vellum, of course, is going to diffuse the light. Acetate is going to let the light shine brighter through there. So, you know, that's kind of the difference between diffusing it and then just having something shine. So you get to decide whether you want it to be shiny or diffused in there. I just think it does create a wonderful, wonderful glow. Now, the tiny lights that you're seeing, like the purple ones, those are only, they only come out at Halloween, and they will be coming out again this year in Ideology. The regular lights, just the regular clear lights, those are year-round Ideology SKU, and they can be alcohol inked, but these purple ones are just, they're magic. It's almost like a black light, right? But see, that's the great thing about a make too. It looks perfect just as it is, just that little extra touch of magic to light it up. And again, you see that Ideology quote chip. Very cool. All right. I've got stuff everywhere, I swear. Then we've got this beautiful book from Juliana. So I'm going to untie it. I've seen little sneaks of it, little pictures, but I'm just going to untie all this wonderful crinkle ribbon. Just don't want to knot it up. So I'm just kind of, there we go, getting that out of the way. So you can see here, again, I thought that was very clever to have those pieces metallic in the back. A lot of great texture in there. I love seeing just some kind of bonus dyes of any of the wildflowers or any of the weeds, but take a look at this cool Halloween tag accordion book, right? Look at how gothic, cool, crypty it is. And I'll just hold it, like, look at how all those windows just reflect the metallic. Shut up. So cool. And all the houses, like, look at them, how they're stamped. That to me, when I saw the images, I didn't open it until right now, but I saw it already open. But I saw the images on there, and it's like, I love the idea of stamping over the black just to give each of those buildings their own character, right? Whether it's script or whether it's like there's some x-ray in there, you can see just some bony hands. Very cool. And all the different textures. This is some old school Ideology paper. That's the great thing. If you have your stash that you haven't used, use it. It's to use. So use it, enjoy it. Utilize different stencils, right? The little swirling stars, or that wonderful script, or the dots, or those gothic windows, and pair it with different elements. Again, taking that idea and replicating it, but switching it up, changing up the frame, changing up the little wildflowers, and having all the little labels. Isn't that just, it's so cool. And of course, all the stitching, right? Very, just, I would say is wicked cool, right? Just really, really great. And then it all ties around with crinkle ribbon. I love this. Love that wonderful black ribbon. I miss this ribbon, I do. But you can use seam binding ribbon, and you can dye it and create your own thing. Beautiful, right? Excellent, Juliana. All right. Okay, let's load this stuff up and we'll get on to the next basket. I hope you guys are finding serious inspiration. I know that these are definitely inspiration overload, but that's what it's for. It's so you can really truly see the potential of a die. So what you guys just saw really was just Ghost Town and the Vault. And you see those elements because you think, oh, do I really need that die set? Do I really? Well, maybe you still don't need it, but at least you're inspired to know what to do with it if you do have it. Thanks, Mario.
You're welcome.
A lot of makes. We've got baskets just shuffling all behind the scenes because here is the next set. So this one we're going to start out with Toil and Trouble, and these cards that, oh my gosh, the cards people did, they're just so freaking cute. And I can say that they are cute. So Jen created this. Look at that. Look at that little sparkle, right? Look at the little sparkly, love the little hocus pocus right there, that beautiful purple inked background. Love that black glitter. Telling you, that black glitter from that sparkle set for Distress Halloween is just, it's amazing. Because it really does just, you can see how dark black it is compared to this glittery cardstock. I think it's very, very cool. But love seeing just that cutout of the circle, again, just inked and then just layered with the moon. Isn't that just very cute? Such a cute card. I think it's really just the personality of the witches from Toil and Trouble that make this set really fun. So this card, just going to go in, you can see the mica. Sharon created this card, but look at how she used the mica stain to create kind of that bubbling cauldron. She used the color. Well done, Sharon. I just got that, if you couldn't tell. It just connected in that moment. I'm like, she used bubbling cauldron for, yes, bubbling cauldron coming up out of that bubbling cauldron. So you can see that green and that really wonderful mica stain. And then just used a sparkly card. Isn't that fun? And I like just having that inlay of that yellow in there just to create that glow inside the cauldron. But again, another fun card. And just pairing it with a little ideology clipping from Halloween. I mean, look, both of those cards, two different makers, incredibly cute, working with inks and glittery, sparkly stuff to really make just so fun. It's a fun set, because that's what I was saying. When I talk about spec and it kind of bores people, those details, it matters when you make, right? You may not notice it on the packaging, but when you start layering it, the fact that you can see through each layer to appreciate that next little die cut and how skinny it is, that right there, that's magic to me. Just the fact that we can trail off her hair and have, I mean, look how tiny that little gap of cardstock is. I mean, her neck, very tiny. So do you have to be a little careful? Yes, but is it worth it? Heck yes. That's what it is. All right. This next one, I'm just gonna kind of pull out a couple of things, and I'm going to share this one. This is a Tammy B make. It's a personal card, but I thought the idea was so good. I hope Tammy doesn't mind that I share it. So this first one, this is Zoe with a Y. She created this tag. I love this effect of just kind of the embossing enamels on the pieces, right? We've got the witch, we've got the cat that's just hanging on. Do you see how the cat's tail is wrapped around that broom and just kind of hanging on? And it just says, in my defense, I was left unsupervised. I thought that was a hilarious pairing for that. But just the details of a tag. So if you're not into card making and you just want to make for making and you want to create tags, really great to have die cuts. And I like the fact that just kind of her feet hang off of the edge. But again, using your stencils, any elements in that stitching detail, it's very, very cool. But this card, so again, Tammy, I hope you don't mind. This is a personal card she sent me, but really when I saw it, because nobody else, I mean, everyone that used it really focused on the witches, which was great. But I know that Tammy loves cats, and I just thought this was brilliant to have the window. This is just some worn wallpaper that she has in the back. This is a piece of mica that she kind of has over the window, and she utilized the cats just in the window, right? And then she has all the little mice out there and just says waiting, or watching and waiting, and just over that lumber cardstock. So even if the set, I know there's a lot of people that just love the cats. Maybe you're totally not into the witches. I don't know. Maybe it's just going to be that die set where you just have them for the cats and the mice, and you give the witches to a friend or something. But just that in itself, I thought, well, there you go. I would never even have thought of it, but it was very, very clever. So I wanted to share that. So I hope it's okay. I do. I didn't show the inside, but I do love it. Very clever, right? Okay. Next, we'll talk about there's some other cards, but I just want to always share that when it comes to dies, you can mix and match a lot of different dies to create different elements. So this, I'm just going to stand this up. So this is how it really looks. It's got a vignette stand. It's a vignette box. Jan created this one. It's got some great kind of mossy sticks growing up the side. But I thought it was really clever to have the witch and the cat, but on one of those leaf fragments, right? It created kind of a very cool anchor point that I loved in there. I'm going to light it up because there are some tiny lights in there. I love that the tiny lights are behind that inked. Can you see all the, I'm going to try to show you, but there's a ton of mica stain back there, which gives it just such a beautiful pearly glow. but with the tiny lights in there, there you go. You can see how the moon lights up, right? But take a look at the bottom. Look at the corner right there. Recognize those little pieces? Come on, come on. It's those little pieces from Countryside, right? Those little knockouts of the house and the tree, and the fact that like just totally created that whole forced perspective of the little tiny houses down there, and now you've got the witch flying off into the moon. I mean, come on, Jan. Really? Like, seriously. Like that connects the dots right there. You've got Countryside, you've got Leaf Fragment, you've got Toil and Trouble, and just put it all together, and yeah, you've got some serious magic. And there it is. There's that little cat. I think these cats are going to start showing up in a lot of makes probably all year long, because they're cute cats. I want them just to be kind of a bit curious, I guess. Curious, peculiar, just I love the posing of them. But isn't that great? Huh. Very, very cool. All right. We'll start bringing out just more. There's so many fun ways to create this. So Emma created this tag. This is actually that etc. tombstone. So that's the whole kit where you've got the tag. So it just starts out as just an etc. tag, but then it comes with these add-ons that you can build, and that's the same piece that Zoe with a Y created on her element. But here you can see not only how you can utilize this to create a scene, right? So if you're not doing a vignette, you want to create a scene on a tag. This is a great way to kind of go if you're not ready for something totally 3D. You can start building on these. I think etc. tags are so cool because they're very robust. They're very thick. But I love all the detail and texture that Emma put on this. Again, just adding the paste to go around there. There are the creepy eyes from Ideology that only come out at Halloween, but they are phenomenal. Yes, they will be making a return. I love seeing just the moon and the clouds from Ghost Town 2, right? Then you can see the gate piece from the Vault series, and then you see Toil and Trouble. So again, it's about those dies, all the dies in the release. Yeah, you can just have one of those. That's fine. But if you have more than one, don't be afraid to mix and match. But I think what's really eye-catching on this whole thing, I love all the details, the Bewitched, again, all the texture and the hardware, utilizing that. Emma loves baubles, right? I always kid with her. These are the Ideology baubles that come out at Christmas. And these little baubles that she has just kind of spilling out of the cauldron are wonderful. And even with all of this wonderful texture and layers, my eye is still drawn to the center of attention, the focal point, the story, which of course is the witch and the cat and the cauldron. And I think what really did it for me is really that use of that black glitter, right? From that sparkle set, the Distress sparkle set. It's just so dark, but it's also so sparkly that you can see it as a silhouette, but you also just get that wonderful, wicked sparkle for Halloween. And it was all of those things. It was the grit, the color, the layers, the texture, and the sparkle. Very, very cool to see those elements totally transformed just depending on how the maker saw them used, right? And it's funny because some people just saw it as like regular glitter, others saw it just to kind of create their own look and feel. Juliana created these cards. I love that the card set of just these colors. It's like, wow, you see those distress colors just like, dang, just pop. But all of the stamp layers, we've got the damask background, the little spider web in there. But there again, there you can see those witches with the black sparkle, that glitter. I'm telling you, I was trying to tell people in there that there's something about how nostalgic Halloween it is, but it does create a beautiful silhouette. But quite amazing, right? And there were other makes, but just when you kind of see that, they were kind of all one after the next in the basket. And I thought it's so amazing to me to see that design completely transformed and inspired by a different maker's idea for using it. Just cool. So whether you do three-dimensional like a vignette, whether you want to start getting into layering to kind of do a little bit more assemblage and build up from a solid foundation, or you stick to cards, that's the great thing about a design or a shape, is it gives you that freedom to do that. Okay. So from Toil and Trouble, we're going to go into to Pumpkinhead because he's fun. And these, I got to say, you guys, these were something else. Very, very cool. So Paula created this. I love this mini clipboard. Love all the grungy detail. Again, all that texture. See, that texture really is just, I'm drawn to it when I see it. But love seeing the ideology clippings just to create a frightful little story. Little mummy cloth. That's another favorite for ideology. Only comes out at Halloween. Mummy cloth, although it looks like a strip of gauze, it's kind of cheeseclothish, so you can kind of mix it together and just add that little element to it. But there he is. Look at him. He's so fun, so cool. Look at the detail. I love the detail in his pants. It's like wood grain right there. That's so clever to use the wood grain. I think that's wood grain, P. I'm not sure. I think so. It looks like wood grain to me, but I love seeing that because it's like pinstripe in the pants, that little bit of sparkle in the pumpkin head that he's holding. But then again, because it's colorized, you can just cut out the pumpkin and make another one on there. But adding it to a clipboard, again, that's another structure. This is an ideology mini clipboard. It is a great structural piece to build on because it's got the removable mechanics. That's what makes this special than like, oh, can I just get a clipboard at, the dollar store or whatever? Sure, you can do that. But I think the cool thing about this is that by not worrying about that, you don't have to maneuver around that hardware piece. You can actually take this off, do all of your background, your inking, your paper, and then you can reattach that. So that's why we did this one. And plus the size, it's so cute. And then it's ready to hang. So great little clipboard P. Very, very cute. Okay, next one I just thought was really fun. This is just super charming. Kath created this fun thing with all of these great little pumpkins. Love seeing all of those just quirky, fun pumpkins to create that background. All of the color. Really, really cute. Just the colors. So let me just talk about some of the things that I noticed. And again, I'm seeing this stuff for the first time live. We unpack it, we set it up, but I don't really pay attention to stuff until I do it live. So there's a lot of stuff that I notice, and there's a lot of stuff I miss. So I think, following the bloggers, whenever they're posting on their blogs, I want to go and learn more about the details. But here's one thing that caught my eye. This is from the park, right? That's a chapter 3 die. And just the fact that she utilized that element with Pumpkinhead, and she's got, I think those are the glasses maybe from Hip Haunts, maybe even that's a hat for it. And then I love just seeing that umbrella, but look at that. You do you. That's right, Kath. That's right. You tell him, you do you. But see all those pumpkin heads just kind of scattered around? That is really quite fun just to add the element. And that little splash of sparkle, that's where your eye goes. Very cool. Just a cute. This is an etc. tag again. So when you see these bigger foundational pieces, well, that's what that is. All right. This etc. tag, this is Zoe with a Y. I love seeing this tag. I think this tag is really very cool with all those layers. So you can see that mini 3D, right? Just adding those little panels. There's some leaves in there. There's a little texture in here, right? Using the texture paste. There's so much. I think that's the thing about when Zoe the Y creates these. There's so many different details that you really have to look to notice that little bit of texture on that torn edge. And look how it really accents that torn bit of paper. I love seeing the raven just kind of sitting in his hand. And this is what I was saying about Colorize. Notice that these colors, this is all oxide paper. So these are all just colors that you can use and layer those pieces over the top. And then we've got that 3D leaf that you can really, I don't know, just use as an embellishment. I say really a lot, but that's what I think. I love the ideas. I'm so inspired. I'm inspired just like all of you are inspired, because seeing that shape transformed to something different, that's just, it's always cool. All right, the next piece, again, another, I don't know, it's kind of another story, I guess. So this one, I'll just kind of show you the texture of this, because it does have stuff on the back. So Juliana created this one, but the texture on the back of this, so cool. Just using, see, there's that grit paste. So the cool thing about that Halloween distress grit paste are all those little flecks of black in there that creates the texture with the web. And you put it over that tombstone. So this is the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. We talked about that Pumpkinhead, the Headless Horseman. But see, look at how dapper he is dressed. And he's holding that pumpkin head. There you see the embossed gates right there. I love seeing the tree. There's the moon in the back. But what another great use for that Stampers Anonymous tombstone, just to set the stage for that, because you can use the spiderweb die. That's an older die, incorporating that hanging spider. Very cool. I love the branches too. Like that to me, you know, just seeing the branches kind of creep in around, that's fantastic. And you can see, let me just tell you, can you guys see his eyes? Okay, flickering candle right there. That's it. That mica stain on that layer in there, that's what's really making that face just so cool. Love the Sleepy Hollow. And just, I really like the size of those gates too. That's wicked fun. Wicked, wicked fun. All right. So another idea, this is from Zoe, and I love this whole kind of mix of texture and elements. So Zoe used the candlelight, the Colorize, right? But I just want to kind of point out so many details that she did. So we've got the tag. So we'll talk about the background tag. Background tag with all the texture. There's all that paste. Again, that's the Halloween texture paste. So this isn't grit paste. This is going to be the texture that's really going to give you almost kind of a stone-like finish. Okay. And then when you look here, just look at all these little details. We've got there we go, the little stitching, little hardware heads, and then we've got these candle stands. Now the candle stand, of course, you can use and build for the drippy candles, but also, there you go. That's Pumpkinhead, right? That's just a Pumpkinhead. So if you didn't use the body, told you that just having his Pumpkinhead was very cool. I love the colors that are used, and then you can see all the drips. So can you see all the wax drips that Zoe did? Really cool, because I love seeing that wax drip. So that would be the wax drip from the big candle, just utilized over the pumpkin, so it's dripping down his face, and then cutting out those wax strips and putting it under a sticker just to kind of give it that eerie vibe. Very cool. I love the colors of this. Just a great use for those components, especially just from the candlelight, like to create that creep and incorporate that pumpkin just in those colors. Awesome. Zoe also created this. Zoe does banners. She does just amazing banners for Halloween. Sometimes it's an entire series, sometimes it's just an element. But this is another great use if you just want to create things on a card base or just cardstock that you don't want to do a lot of layers, right? Meaning you don't want to have to worry about building a box or anything, and you're like, well, you know, I don't want to make a card because I don't know who I'm going to send a card to. This is great because this is really just kind of taking a card and cutting out a notch, but you can really step up your game with all the details. So you can see all the stitching Zoe did around the edge just to build those layers up. There, look at that. Look at that. Wonderful, wonderful 3D mini. I love it. All right. But there we go. Anyone that follows Zoe Hillman knows the hat, right? The hat and the guy, and how perfect is Pumpkinhead for him. Yes, so if you have this stamp set, this is Stampers Anonymous, right? How cool is that to utilize that Pumpkinhead for the hat and the collar? And then we've got Jack. That's right, the Pumpkin King. And then you can see here that little tattered banner just folded up. So that's what I was saying about folding it up, right? So that banner is usually long and you can accordion fold that and put it on there. But I just thought, like, really clever use for just that pumpkin head outside of utilizing it with the body, right? So many ideas. So many ideas. Okay, we're moving on. We're still getting down. Gosh, guys, we still have 5 baskets to go. Just saying, we have a lot of stuff. All right. I've got these 2 other things. You know what? I think I'm going to show one now and one. Yeah. No, I'm going to wait. I'll wait. I had to have a conversation with myself. Okay. All right. Next, this one I'm gonna light this up first, just because I thought it was really. No, I'm gonna actually wait. So Yuko created this. There's so many cool features about this. So I just want to just kind of give it justice. So we've got, again, there's our 3D. We've got crackle paste on this one, right? Just kind of spread out to get that cool crackly. There's a mini pulley wheel. I love the mini pulley wheel with the chain, and the chain holds this lantern. Now, just take a look at that lantern for a minute, will you? Look, it's got just that tissue paper behind it, and it's just kind of torn out. Where it to me, it looks like shattered glass, because you kind of left those little wispy things. Yuko, I think this is just, it's brilliant. But the lantern, is attached with chain to this pulley wheel, okay, on the top of this box. You guys with me so far? It's like I told you, so many details. And then we've got this cool riveted edge around this box, okay? Again, more texture on here. Then when you look in the back, I'm just gonna move this out of the way just for now. You can see in the background, that cool stamped image. You guys see that great big skeleton bone? Again, utilize your stamps for the background. Then we've got all of these skulls, again, ideology skulls wrapped up. And then you can see the candles. Now the candles, that's the die, all the drippy candles done in black. But then you see the top of each one. You guys see the top of each one? I'm sure you guys know exactly where I'm going with this one, don't you? You know it. I know it. Tiny lights. Yep. So we've got, I'm going to try to hold it from back. So you can see that she positioned some of the candles where it lights up the lantern. But then she just took the tiny lights because they're thin wire and just bent them and used those as the flame for all of the candle die cuts. Come on. I mean, you see that? That is just, it's so much detail, right? Like, I mean, I appreciate this. I would never have the patience to pull this one off, but the idea is really brilliant. And the thing about tiny lights, remember, and I know, Mario and I joke about this a lot where people are like, I don't want to cut the tiny lights, I don't want to cut them off. But even if you were going to do this idea and you only had 3 or 4 candles you wanted to light up, you just cut the excess off of the tiny lights and utilize it. But isn't that, so whether you had the lantern in there or just the candles, but I think it adds such a great element that it just, see, it actually just kind of swings over here, but you can't see it on camera. I'm just trying to show you. There you go. Wow, right? So much detail for that die set, right? The candlelight and the lantern. So much detail. Just very, very cool. Yeah, it's really, really brilliant. So many ideas. All right, let's get into Mr. Bones Colorize. Now, I have to say, the makers just absolutely blew me away on this one because this is Mr. Bones. This is him in his simplicity. And Sharon created this card and it's like, that's my jam, right? He's fun. He's fun in his great neutral color, just using that tombstone in the dirt, putting him on a card. He's the star of the show right there. And you can make him dimensionalized by just adding, foam adhesive or anything like that to really get him off of the card. But it's just it's very cool to see that. I think that to me is what I love about just the simplicity of a design as your focal point. Just a great card. But you can take him and you're going to see a lot of different personalities that he actually has from these makes. All right. So this next one, I'm just going to, I'm a little tangled up in here. This is a vignette that Paula created. So take a look at the box, right? I remember when Paula texted me, she's like, I'm not really much of a sparkly person, but this mica stain is something else. And I go, that's the thing, right? When people kind of hear that or they see something pearly, they're like, oh, I'm not into sparkle. It's not about the sparkle, guys. It's about the reflection. And so you can see that flickering candle over black, and then that crackle in there, like look how it gets into the crackle, right? And then you spray it with water and you get that eerie drip. It doesn't have to be, it's not mica spray. It's not designed to cover everything. Mica stain means that it's going to stay connected to the colorant. So any effects that you do, any water, any dripping, you're going to get it to do that, whether it's into the cracks, whether it's over the paper. It just has such a beautiful effect. Very cool. And then inside, here's Mr. Bones. And yes, it lights up. Tiny lights again. Just that glow behind that tombstone, right? You look in there, we've got just some great texture on there. And I love all the little splattery layers of Mr. Bones. He's kind of gray, but look at this bone garland that he's got. So these are the ideology bones just tied up. And it's almost like he's just decorating his space for Halloween, just hanging a bone garland. And I love just how she utilized just his positioning of his hands and the way his fingers are as if he's just hanging something. Isn't that so clever? The little bone garland, you've got the bones on the ground, and look at that dirt. The dirt and the moss and some sticks, and yeah. So Mr. Bones is decorating his grave for Halloween. So great. Flickering candle for the win. Am I right? Yeah, it's very clever and fun. You're totally right. Love it. Decorating a space. And really, that little light up, come on. I can't get enough of tiny lights. If you haven't noticed that, that's how it is, right?
Attention, Tracy, up the tiny lights.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about tiny lights is that they're every day, right? If you're looking for the clear ones, they're every day, so that's good. But they do sell out pretty quick, like over and over, right? So Vicky created this vignette. What I really liked about this was the use of texture, and I say texture because he's all done out of wood grain, right? The wood grain cardstock. So you take that distressed wood grain cardstock and look at that wonderful, cool, just monochrome look of that. He's got the frame that she kind of built. He's even cut out of wood grain. So look at all the texture of Mr. Bones out of that cardstock, because the distressed wood grain cardstock really has a very fine detail to it. So it's not thick like 3D lumber. 3D lumber is a great folder, but it's got incredible texture to it, where the wood grain has texture, but it's very fine detail. But when you do the frame, there's a tombstone. You see the ghost from the vault peeking up back there. There's the little moon. And I love that little addition of the flower. That's hilarious, Vicky. That's really a clever touch, where that little flower sticking up out of the dirt. But just seeing him in that different texture, what a great idea. I love that, because it does. It just looks totally like a wood carving. And then we've got just the details. So 1031 for Halloween. Again, wood grain. So just taking that paper and utilizing it and then putting it onto the wood box, the vignette, I think it's very clever. I love that faucet knob. Yep, classic, old school. Can't believe she shared that. And even the Muse token, this goes way back. This Halloween Muse token, I don't even know how many years. I mean, this is classic. It's a good thing she gets all the makers get their makes back, because I wouldn't want to part with that either. Those are old school. I love them. But very cool make, right, with Mr. Bones. See, I get distracted over the makes. It's like I just kind of zoom in and get super distracted. All right. So if you're a fan of Disney, like I am, and like Tammy B is, then just the skeleton dance, very cool make. And seeing this whole scene, you can see there's all the Mr. Bones doing the dance. Look at the details. I mean, Tammy B and I, we share that love for Disney in a big way. But all of these other components, we've got the Ghost Town 2, the clouds that go across, so it really elongates the scene. Look at the background, right? The whole background, that's the paste. That's texture paste, right? Using that seasonal texture paste, because it's got that wonderful gray cast to it. Spreading it over the background, very thin. We've got all of the little headstones from the vault. We've got these from Mr. Bones, and then you've got the gates also from the vault. So how cool is that? Just on a panel, and this is a panel, again, that can sit on a mantle. This can go into a frame. Maybe you have a vintage frame, maybe a metallic frame. Maybe this is going to be something that goes into a wreath. And the thing to remember, right? The makers make to inspire you. And I know in this industry, there's people that they have this internal conflict with that. And I'm just telling you, like, we share to inspire. And anyone that doesn't want to inspire or feels just indifferent about someone taking an idea and running with it really shouldn't share. Then you should just make for yourself. The whole, I think what fuels our creative industry and keeps it going is that you are making in the hopes of inspiring someone else to say, oh, I love this idea. Oh, I love this that Tammy created. I'm gonna do this on a card, or I'm gonna create this on an envelope, right? Like Tifa might look at this and say, oh, this is really cool. That's okay, really. I mean, the only thing I think that just makes it just that much better is that when you take that time when you're posting and say, yeah, I was inspired by Tammy B, just do a shout out. I mean, you don't owe a big write-up, biography about that person, but doing a shout out, that is what keeps the creative industry, in my opinion, revolving. We want to share, we want to inspire, we want to acknowledge, and we just keep going. You keep paying it forward, and then that's the idea. There's, to me, nothing more inspiring than somebody seeing something or a technique that's been done and doing it, because, well, it's fun when you see that idea. Some people have that mindset of like, why didn't I think of that? Thinking that they can't do it. I look at it and go, why didn't I think of that? I got to do it right now. So really, that inspiration, Disney all the way, for sure. For sure. All right, now it's going to be party time with Mr. Bones, and this really surprised me because we have makes from 3 different makers that all saw Mr. Bones as this party guy, right? that's what he was, and it's completely different idea. So these, I have to tell you, when I first saw them, and I said to Paul, I'm like, I don't even know what that is. It didn't even. I'm going to just set this here for a minute while I'm talking. It didn't even dawn on me what it was. Maybe you guys are going to see it right away. I didn't. Okay, but I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. So these, Mr. Bones, these are from Anita. Anita created these. Wonderful tags. They're on Swedish fish. There's a little hint. Okay. Anyone notice something very unique that was used on here? Anyone? Okay. I see a little bit. No one's really named the dye yet. Okay. I'll give it just a second. Anyone? Yep, I see Natalie Scrapbook Central. She said it's a fish, and the octopus? Yes. I need to use the under the sea dyes that we did as costumes for Mr. Bones. So now we're going to pick up each one to see. And she did It's Officially Halloween. Get it? Hilarious. So there you can see the jellyfish from Under the Sea as the costume. She's got even that little string that goes around his head. She used his little tombstone. Look at the little fish right there. She did it out of that same color, so it's just like the little, where it just looks like it's part of that tombstone, part of the concrete. Love that. There's that cute little candy bucket. This was from Costume Party from, I think, last year's Halloween. That little, or they were trick-or-treaters, I think it was called. And there's his little candy bucket. And then you see that leaf in the back that's kind of like a tree, right? If you look at this, because you've got the moon, and she used that leaf fragment almost like a tree. I think it's a tree, but I mean, I see it as a tree, right? But I just saw the whole pun, everything. Officially Halloween, and then tied it on with Swedish fish. Come on. I mean, stop it right now. The next one, so same thing. It's officially Halloween. So you, again, take that idea and run with it. And there's his costume. There is his little dolphin costume, just accented with stickles. So clever. Just, it's hilarious. And then we've got the octopus right there. This is so fun. But really, that little candy bucket, that trick-or-treater, that, again, that's the whole thing. You have a die from a previous year. Look at those components. Look at just that one little element and go, oh my gosh, he's going to be perfect with this one. That's the whole idea about dies, right? Dies are tools, and the whole idea is that if you collect them, you may not use everything. You may have had that trick-or-treater die and didn't even use that pumpkin because it wasn't what you were doing at the time, and now that die becomes relevant. That's what I think about dies and stamps. To me, those are tools that will last. I know some people outgrow their dies and stamps and they want to purge, they want to get rid of them. And then it's usually regretful where you see that idea and you're like, dang it, if I only kept it for that, I would have. So yeah, I think that's really, really clever. So fun just to see those candy guides with Mr. Bones. Hilarious, isn't it? Really, it is funny. It's so funny. All right, this card, Kath created this card. It's party time. And she created, like, look at that witch hat on there on Mr. Bones. These are a lot of older dies. I mean, just that's the fun. And I know Kath is great at blogging, so she'll share which die set this came from. But you can see just some great background paper. That background, that is old, abandoned. That abandoned paper pad that's been retired. Great background paper, because if you don't want to do any of the inking or anything, abandoned is just a very cool background. Then we've got some stenciling over the top. I love just how decked out he is, where he's got his little pumpkin ornament and his hat and his bow tie. Party time. But then, there you go. Look at that. She invited everyone to the YouTube live party. You are so sweet. Grab some snacks and take your seat. That is so much fun, Kath. I loved it. It was so much fun that she did our YouTube party.
Everyone and sent us the snacks.
That's right. And we got snacks. So we got an invitation to come to live, and she sent us snacks to enjoy. Take my seat? Well, no, I'll be standing for a few hours, but that's how it is. But so much detail. So thanks, Kath. Really a lot of fun. A lot of fun to take that and just Yeah, transform how everything, right? Then this one, Nico created this. Just seriously, party like there's no tomorrow. That is a great birthday card right there. Absolutely great. Like, I'm totally running with this idea, Nico. This probably is going to be like the go-to birthday card. I don't make many birthday cards, but this one I would make because it's hilarious. I love this one. I believe this hat is a side order, maybe. I think so. I could be wrong. That party hat, but I love all the little stars, all the little sprinkles in there, right? But isn't that just fun? Really, really fun just to see those colors. Hey, he's just kind of throwing around like confetti and sprinkles. But now, you know, when you see Mr. Bones, it could totally be a birthday card, right? Right? Even if you use the stamp, you know, from Inquisitive, like how old? Like really, really great just to add that element, especially for, you know, just the larger birthdays, right?
Yeah.
The higher number birthdays. Mara and I are laughing about that. That's right. See, that's it. I turned 50 this year, so I got that. So there you go. Take a look at that. But just funfetti Mr. Bones. You're right. I agree, Janice. That's really cool. So great use for Mr. Bones. That's just inspiration overload to me. All right. So I would say we're like halfway through inspiration. So maybe at this point you guys are rolling your eyes because you're like, are you kidding? But hey, inspiration doesn't sleep, shouldn't sleep. It should just keep going and keep going and keep going. We don't want it to. We want it to just keep thriving. All right. Keisha created this card. So this is Pumpkin Patch. And now for those of you that were asking about like the scale of things, right? That's the whole idea. That when you're looking at the scale of these dies, this is going to be like your A2 card. So that will always give you the idea. So when you're looking at these makes, hopefully that's going to help you with the scale or size of what these are. All right. So the cool thing about Pumpkin Patch, you can see, I love just the clean, vibrant colors of the paper. There's some of that mica stain splattered in the back. You can see the background die. This is from chapter 3. I don't know what it was called. I know it wasn't called Leaves. I never remember the names, but that is the die with all those little tangled branches in the back. And just happy Halloween with the pumpkin. I love this Keisha. I love just the contrast of color. When Keisha creates cards, it just always has that punch of color that's just wham. That's what I love. Really fun. And these guys, they're charming, right? They just make me smile. When I look at them, I just smile. You can't help but smile, right? This card Sharon created, again, just utilizing cardstock, a little textured. This is Ideology, so it's a little bit more vintage, you know, when you compare that. And that's the other thing to remember about a shape is that you do you. You can create any kind of effect. But just going into the background, I love just that the die cut of the stars, right? Swirling stars, that was an older die. Love seeing that just cut out of that purple paper and just layered on a card. Very cool for if you're doing Halloween invitations or even if you wanted to just create just something that was a little magical for the holidays around the house. This could also be part of a banner. Another great idea for that background. Just very cute with the pumpkins. And people use them in pairs. And that's the thing. People use these pumpkins a lot of different ways. You guys just buckle up. I wanted to start with like pumpkin, orange. Okay, you might see a couple of orange pumpkins now, but not if Anita has anything to do with it. Because Anita is just, well, she just does her. I say that all the time. You do you. And she's like, okay. Step back and watch. So here is an Ideology vignette shrine. I love the Harlequin that she covered that with. You'll see again a lot of that texture in there. I love the spider web that's cut in there. And look at these pumpkins. So this is some old school cardstock. I love the flocked polka dots. And these guys, of course, yeah, they light up. Tiny lights light up those pumpkins. But look how they're cut out of flocked cardstock. So hilarious and sparkly everywhere with that distress glitter. There's the 31 and there we go. I'm just trying to kind of open that up so you can see, right? The potted 2, right? Just taking any of those potted and you can create those older dies, potted 1 or 2 that you could use either one for these, just depending on how tall you wanted them to be. But I thought that was really great to have those pumpkins. And again, just the color, just what I've thought of black polka dotted pumpkins, I would not, but she would. And that's what I love about the inspiration of the makers. because now I want to do polka dot pumpkins, right? And I'm sure people are going to do rainbow pumpkins and all sorts of things. But the tiny lights, they just add something, right? They just do. And I love that they have a little switch to turn on, and they really make that glitter just kind of do the dance. Paired with a little ideology there, just a lot of fun. I love that shrine because the shrine comes with those pieces that you can add on, so it just makes for a great decor piece. I love it, Anita. A lot of fun. So a little detail piece. Audrey created this. Audrey does so much stuff with fabric, and I'm always so inspired when I see dies cut out of textile, right? Whether it's felt or fabric. And this charming little pillow Audrey did just using that pumpkin Colorize. So when you ever think of those dies, like, will it cut felt? Yes, it will. It will cut felt, and you have the ability to still go in and do all those layers, even down to the little twisted parts of the vine that come out. Now, when you're working with fabric, you do want to work, a little careful when you're taking stuff out of the die, especially when it comes to felt, so these smaller pieces just don't separate. But Audrey shares a lot of details on how she creates it. I think it's very, very cute. This little pillow. And of course, the background, this is my abandoned fabric. So a lot of papers, most of the papers that I did for ideology are in the fabric line. So this is the abandoned fabric line. I love just all that detail in that fabric because it just pulls all the design together. So cute, Audrey. Look at that little trim. Those little pom-poms, little rick-rack around the outside. That detail, very charming. Very, very charming little pillow. All right. Next we have a journal that Jan did. I think this journal, I say a journal, but I mean, she just has a notepad in there, but it could be any kind of journal wrap or journal cover. So the substrate that she used on the outside was like the Sizzix, they used to call it paper leather. I think they call it something else now, but it's a sheet of that she ran through with that embossing folder, right? Just using the foliage. Then you can see the leaf fragments that she used to create the accent. There's some ideology, some ephemera, even the ideology charm. This book spine, right? I'll just try to open that up. This is a stamp. So this is one of my Stampers Anonymous stamps. It's actually a set of book covers, but she stamped that just to use for the spine of the book. Isn't that a cool detail, right? Look at that, where that's stamped on, and then she stitched it. And then there is the embossing on the back as well. So she created a journal wrap just using her embossing folders, inks, mica stains, taking a stamp, sewing that together and just wrapping that. So whether you're wrapping a notepad or a journal or anything, I think that's just very cool. And then there's the highlight right there, that pumpkin. I think it really does create a beautiful focal point, especially when you add just a little bit of distressing to the edges of it. There's some mummy cloth, right? Adding that little bit of mummy cloth that comes out. It is a brilliant use of that stamp. I completely agree. I'm like, what is that? So cool, Jan. I love it. And then, of course, the ideology velvet trim, right? Just adds such a wonderful touch. The velvet trim is part of the everyday line, but I love seeing that for fall. Isn't that charming? Really, really cool. Just a great use for that. I love it. All right, moving on. More pumpkins. We just keep going with the pumpkins, right? Can't get enough pumpkins. Vicky created this pumpkin etc. tag. Look at the spider webs. A little bit of spider webs in there. I love that, right? I love spider webs when they're done. Like, it's just so delicate, just kind of pulled out on there. Here are the etc. trims, just adding the shelf, and of course we have that trim die, right? We just released that in chapter 3, so now you can cut out your favorite pattern papers that work with the etc. trims. So they have all the great detail. I love all the little things like the little mischief clipping sticker under this guy, and then of course the light flickered. You see just that cool spider web just through the texture. So if you see how detailed that is, right? Utilizing these elements, you can use. This is an old stencil, I think. I've got to look in here. I'm sure I'm going to be distracted, so that's probably never a good thing, Mario. But I think it is. It's like an old school. He's like, oh crap, he's going to be talking now. I just want to see. I can't find the number. I'm sure it is, but I've got to look. Is Vicky watching the live?
Yeah, so if she says it, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I think it's called Shattered or something like that. I have to remember. I don't know if I could find it, but it's like a crackle stencil, because when I was wondering what that was, because I don't know if you guys are going to see that. Can you guys see that? It's a texture in there. So that's kind of put over the top. It's just beautiful. But the lights flickered just made me go, did she? Yeah, she did. She lit them up. Tiny lights on a tag, an etc. tag, and just how it just shines up. There is the metallic paper in there.
THS014.
1-4. Okay, thanks.
Shattered.
Shattered. Yeah, I knew that. Zero.
You said shattered.
Yeah, 014. I was right. I was so close. Oh, look. That's because I was starting with 1. Nah, it was right there. Right in the back. I would have had to go through the whole stack. There we go. There's that stencil, right? So this stencil with just a small amount of paste through it creates a very cool raised web, whether you're just using like translucent paste and then going with some color, that's it. Or you can just do ink and embossing, a little frosted crystal. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can put texture through a stencil, but I love seeing the spiderweb because the color is actually rubbed in as a relief. But yeah, beautiful little lights through those candle faces. See? Because they're charming just as they are, but of course when you light them up, and it looks like some black, some of that Ideology black metallic cardstock because the light really reflects in there. See that? But when the lights are off, it's just black. So using black metallic paper is really great because if the lights are at the bottom, it casts a wonderful glow. Awesome. That's a great tag. That's really fun. I love that stencil as well. Like I looked at it and I thought, what? See? Proof that I see it for the first time because I would have had that one a little staged, but I couldn't. Okay. All right. This next one, and I've said this before, I'm always fascinated with different makers channel a very similar thought or idea. And it happens all the time. And really the makers, I mean, I know they communicate with each other, but we don't have like a brain session of, oh, what's everyone going to make? Everyone just kind of does their own thing. So it's really cool. So Zoe created this. Zoe Hillman, this is Steam Pumpkins. Get it? Steam Pumpkins. This is, of course, using the new Mini 3D. Look at how she created those pumpkins with those wonderful riveted faces. Of course, the brick. I say that Zoe is kind of the brick queen. There's more grit around there just to create that kind of eroded wall effect. This is, again, an Ideology mini clipboard. So seriously, I mean, I don't think we've had lives where we have more than one clipboard, but seeing another clipboard, cool. And I love the tiny lights. Now, the great thing about tiny lights, right? You can cut them. So you can have a full string. If you could do all of it with one set if you wanted to, right? You can transform that. But you can put a lot of lights in something to make it bright, and you can put a few lights in the others to make it dim, and you can create that effect, right? But I love the detail of these steampunk pumpkins with the wood grain cardstock and the metal. Vicky, also steampunk, but of course, you know, Thelma and Louise right here, these two. So it's no surprise that they really channeled their inner grunge. So Vicky also did a steam pumpkin, but as you can see, a completely different look, a completely different effect, a completely different background, different colors, right? Using alcohol ink and just layering paper, but they also still use like wood grain, a little bit of wood grain in the back because, well, what goes better with metal than wood? But you look at the background of this tag. So this background, all brick and grit and yum. And this background, all layered die cuts. So let me just hold this back so you can see. So if you look back here, it's just giant gears, right? So the Biggs gears, right? Any of the Biggs dies where you can cut thicker things, that's going to be these background pieces. So the whole entire background is put together with giant gears, and then you've got the spider webs over the top of it. Can you see that? Another die, and then the Ideology machine heads just to create a whole different effect. But I just love that. I love seeing that inspiration, but done, of course, in each of their complete unique styles, right? So whether we have that light up steam pumpkin on that brick gritty background, and this one on the layered background with the alcohol inks, and just even how his mouth is layered up and bent, he just has like a wonderful little grin. So great job, both of you. Just right, no surprise there, Thelma and Louise, those two. I know, I love that. When we were all here together in the studio, it was so much fun.
So much fun.
Yeah, they came and paid a visit before Creativation last year, and we had a freaking blast. It was good time, good fun. It's hard to believe that it was last year, right? Doesn't Creativation seem like it was years and years ago? I know, but That's it. Yuko created this one with the pumpkins. I love the little pumpkin patch, and this is just done on a vignette shrine. We've got the wood grain little shingles kind of curled up, and the pumpkins. And again, gosh, I love all the use of tiny lights, guys. You know, you'd think that I sent out a memo. It's just like use tiny lights and everything, but I didn't. So I'm happy that they do. But again, the layers, right? Building up the layers of the pumpkins, and especially using metallic cardstock. If you are going to use tiny lights, think about that. Think of using something behind that's going to be reflective, because that's going to help, because it really does cast the light. There you go. You can see that. It really does shine the light up. I love seeing like this plate, this metallic cardstock with all that little grunge, and then just cut out using that stencil alphabet. This, I think, came with maybe a gift bag die, I believe. But look at the texture of those pumpkins. This is that paste in action. Grit paste for the win. So we have steam pumpkins and we have grungekins, I guess, or grunge pumpkins. But that grungy texture, Yep, little highlights of flowers, just beautiful. And that little effect in the back, that again, those are stencils. So that's just one of the script stencils, just done with a little bit of, you'll see some crackle paste in the back. Just beautiful, beautiful details. This, again, another stencil. I don't know if this one's called grime or grunge or something, but it does. It creates this grungy pattern that you can use your paste on. Just very cool. A lot of great details for pumpkins. So grungy. Then this makes, it's almost like, yeah, there's just some makes that make me happy on the inside, and when you see it, you're going to know why. So this is a whole pumpkin tray that Tammy B created. Now again, we talk about our love for Disney, and so I think kind of every time, not that there's a level of expectation, but there's certainly things that I see that it's like I just know exactly where she was going. So this, of course, was inspired by the pumpkins on Main Street at Disneyland. They have so many pumpkins in all the windows and at the top and all sorts of different elements. But one that I've got off screen that I'm just going to bring in that you'll really see, and if you didn't catch it from here, you'll see it from here. There he is. Like, can we just for a minute, but first, let's light it up. Let's. There we go. Look at that. Tiny lights. So one strand of tiny lights lights up all these pumpkins. Yes, one strand, because it's very thin wire. You can stick around, but there we are. Look at the pumpkin. So again, from Disney, right? So of course that was the giveaway, the mouse ears. I love that. But we've got like throwbacks to Frontierland. I do remember this pumpkin with the suds, right? Taking a bath. There's the little Mad Hatter right there. You got a vampire in there, the little dapper guy with the top hat. Now these guys, and I'll talk about, like, she used a lot of years of pumpkins, and I think that's really why I saw them. I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember that. I remember that. It is very cool to remember that you can take a lot of dyes. This guy right here is a classic. When I see him now, because this was done years ago with EL, when I see him now, this was like Colorize before Colorize. It really was, because this pumpkin, if you see, we still did all the layers. We still did all the pieces. We just didn't really kind of, at least I didn't, think about putting it all together and building color. And so it has he's a hard to get one, this guy, but he is scaled perfectly with the other pumpkins.
You and EL, you were ahead of your own time.
We always were. We just kind of didn't really, I guess, tap into it. There's other dyes that you can utilize. I wonder, I don't know which one this one is that created the eyes. Tammy, I'm sure, would know. I don't think that's the mover and shaper, but these eyes are definitely cut from something. So yeah, but look at the use for potted, right? So potted 1 and potted 2 to create those barrels for the pumpkins to sit in, right? The little elements, there's all the little bubbles. If you look at the background, the entire tray, the vignette tray, this is all done with the foliage folder. Now, anytime I see this, and we talk, Paul and I talk, we're like, okay, so how many weeks is this going to be for this one make? And I'm like, weeks? Let's talk months. This would take me months to construct, because not only do we have the leaves there, but take a look at just the tray itself. The entire tray, you guys, is patchworked with leaf fragments. Patchworked and stitched. I mean, shut the front door. Come on. Look at all those color papers. So this, like, just this as a background is like, Oh, my heavenly texture right there, right? All the good. The ink, the oxide, just stitched together for a panel. So just that, like that's the back. That's like when no one sees, and that's really
So she said
the detail.
it was the set of eyes, frightening faces.
Oh, I remember that die. I totally remember that die. I have it in there too. That's right. Frightening faces were just that whole set of all those eyes, those little faces. That is so clever because it was just shocking that you like were able to transform this with this, but you're right. If it's bigger, it's just going to replace that. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, that's it. Well done, Tammy B. And then of course, Vintage Varsity, using those because again, just the stitch detail in that and adding those little planks. This kind of reminds me of the shooting gallery too in Frontierland, right? Just how they have all those wood planks. But I just can't get enough. Like I want him. I'm not gonna rip it off. I'm not. But like seriously, this, yeah, I love it. Makes me happy. It really does. I know the tiny light heart. It's just, yeah. So I gotta say, some people hide their tiny lights. I'm not that guy. I'm not. I have foam squares and I'm like, okay, stuck to the back. But yeah, I agree. Hidden beauty, that little bit. Anyway, well done. Just wow, wow, wow. Hopefully this will be some sort of series we can go and just kind of learn about each pumpkin and his or her characteristic, of course, because just the added teeth, so funny. Oh my gosh, so funny. Okay, enough gushing. That's just, oh my gosh. Okay, moving on. These next ones, these ones they're actually pretty big. So we'll go in and just start with these guys. I love it. We're going to talk about the Count. And the Count, well, he's personality plus right there. Wouldn't you agree? We just move some other stuff in here. All right. We have a lot of stuff. Okay. So we'll start with this guy. So this Count Stacy created. I love the look of this. So this one started as a vignette box. But remember with your vignette boxes, you don't always have to work on the inside of the box. You can turn that over and it becomes a really great dimensional panel, right? So the cool thing about the Count, of course, is that you can cover it with different kind of papers. So here, Stacy cut out this wonderful spider web. This is an older die as well. Placed it down to use as a mask. So when you spray over it, not only are you inking these pieces, but then you're also getting the resist or the negative effect because used as a stencil. Then she went in and covered these with little bits of glitter. So this isn't the black glitter. This is actually rock candy, clear rock candy that gives it a little sparkle. But I love how these are not only wrapped around the box, but all the space. You see the gap? That's a clever idea. I honestly don't think of things like that. Usually if I'm going to wrap something around, it's like I'm going to stick it down and I'm going to, make a fold and smash it. But having that space, I think just gives these die cut webs just more webbiness, right? And that in itself is the amazing background for this guy, the Count. And this Colorize, you can see every layer is inked, right? So this isn't colored cardstock. This is what I was talking about, that you can take Colorize, cut this out of, this is probably the white heavy stock because it's very smooth. Not sure, but I'm guessing that. And then you can see all that distress ink magic. So you get all the little ink spots and all the layers. Just adding that face, you can do some blending. I love the little watercolor on the cheeks and his lips, right? Isn't he just, he's phenomenal. Just in those colors, there's a little bat. And that in itself, he's cool. He's way better than the packaging, just because of just that ink layer and texture. So he's epic. So this one also, this will also be a tutorial on Joanne, but this I think is probably next month. But Stacy also has some tutorials that she'll be sharing on her blog as well, and I'll talk about those makes near the end. So beautiful, beautiful box. Oh, I love that. The Count, it's really cool because the Count really has, well, he's got the look of the Count. Like makers used, they pretty much followed the colors. But even if they did his cape red or anything, he still has a completely different look, right? Totally different look depending on the maker style or what they created, right? So this, Kathy created this, again, a vignette shrine. But she not only used the Count, but you can see back here, these wonderful black glittery. I'm going to always talk about that glitter because to me, that distressed black glitter, that's why I did the sparkle set. It's like diamonds. I've seen black glitter. You can get black glitter at the craft store. I get that. But to me, it does not sparkle like diamonds. That sparkles like vintage Halloween glitter. It always had that magic where it looked like a million little sparkly stars. And that's what I love about that, that sparkle set. Ranger actually sold out of that stuff. So it's out in the world. So if you can find it and you want it, you should get it. But you can also see how Kathy used the mica. So that's the mica flakes. That's also part of that set. That wonderful, cool gunmetal just adds that cool little bit of sparkle. Look at it along the bottom, those little nuggets. All right. So you've got the uninvited guest. We've got this. But if you look in there, we see that these bats are like dimensionalized, right? I thought that was very, very clever. And you see this big dome. This is one of Sizzix shaker domes, right? So they have a shaker dome. Very clever to use that as a moon. No shaky at all. You can just take that moon. So it's got, let me just shut off the lights again so you can see. She's got two sets. That's why we have different colors. So I'll talk about that. All right. So there you go. So just when it's off, that's what makes those bats kind of look like they're floating in the sky because she's got them on the front of that dome right there, right? But then when we light this up, we've got the warm lights in the back, right? The regular tiny lights. And then there are the purple ones in the front or, yeah, there they are. See? Now you can see down in there. So cool, right? Look at that. What a great shrine, Kathy. But a clever idea for the domes to use as a moon for Halloween, especially to put the lights in there. Yeah, be cute at Christmas too. I love that. Love all the detail of all the images. And really, I don't know, I've never thought of using the mica flakes kind of as like a, I guess almost a grunging element, right? So for you grungers, Zoe, Vicky, Stacy, Emma, like that's a good grunge detail, isn't it? I never really, like I always thought of, you know, sprinkling on something. I never really thought of like sticking it around. So yeah, great job, Kathy. That's very cool. Love the count. Look at him. He's just good. He's cool. Kind of almost has a Phantom of the Opera kind of thing right there. I just noticed. Just kind of seeing it so stark in there. This next one Paula created. I love him. Look at that purple pinstripe in the back. Oh my gosh. Well, P, you're the only one that did the purple in there. He is so fancy. He's so wicked cool in there, and there's that little detail. And so when Paula created this layer, like look how she did the eye with the little, there you go, little glossy accents on there. Love this background. So this background, I don't know. I don't want to put the pressure on you, P, but I hope you do a tutorial because guys, look at the background paper. That whole little panel, that's all just done. That's hand stitched. Well, machine stitched, but stitched on there to create that pattern. What a great idea for background paper. To create that plaid with a sewing machine over an inked piece of paper. Ugh. And then there's the candles. There's that black glitter, that little sparkle set. And even though Paula's not a glitter girl, you can see that works for a perfect vintage vibe. Look at that clipping. A much misunderstood gentleman. And then of course, yes, tiny lights for the win. So she's got tiny lights in there, a cutout, the moon, the little alcohol ink, just to create those kind of moon spots. And then there's that little mummy cloth frayed in there. And look at the box, right? Love the look of the box with the distressed mica spray, the mica stain, I think is, oh yeah, that's bubbling cauldron. And then you can see that, just how it's wrapped around. And that's what I was saying, like when I normally wrap something around, I wrap it and fold over the corner, right? So it's very cool to see it flat, but also kind of see it layered in there. He is fancy. He is so fancy. All right, let's put all these guys in because we're kind of creating a little, I'll kind of try to keep them out of center stage. I'll bring them back in because they are super fancy. I love it. It's great. So Emma created this one. Look at this beautiful tray. So the cool thing about this, there's that new mini steampunk. I love the detail of, and I saw Zoe do this also. I love the detail of that little kind of rusty, grimy hardware with that little orange. Remember back in the day when I saw Andy Skinner do it for the first time, I thought, what a cool detail to do hardware and always do like that drippy rust. I love the addition of just the nails. This is the vignette hardware just tacked in there and not hammered in. I mean, just Emma's always like detail plus. So there's a little spider adornment hanging from a chain. That's the Ideology mini hardware. So you can just see all the way around. That's the thing about the makers. They finish the back even though no one's going to see it. And I'm not that guy. On the bottom, you can see these are the trimmings again from Stampers Anonymous, just used on the bottom of this tray to make it freestanding. There's our count, there's our candles, and in the back, that right there, that's what it's all about, the cathedral window. Yep, that's a die that we did last year. I think it sold out really quick. I don't think it's been retired. I'm not sure, but I know Sizzix is in the house and they'll be able to say yes or no, but I think it's still a current die. But this cathedral window, it's so perfect to scale for the count, isn't it? And putting those lights in there just kind of lights it up. But that window is still very gritty. Look at that. Look at that grit and grime. And just using those little hardware heads, right? A little touch, a little mini plaquette. That's all ideology love right there. Some mummy cloth, as I talk about. So many makers use mummy cloth and just pull it apart, right? Some little twiggy vines going in there. And again, that black glitter just sparkles. There's some crackle paste. Gosh, there's so many details in here. And just kind of seeing him with that cathedral window, just plank with those candles. Isn't he cool? Something wicked. Something wicked indeed. Oh my gosh, you guys. See? You see where we're going? We got a pattern here, but we're not done. There's so many different ideas for using him. So Tammy created these, and there were actually two of them. That's what I was saying earlier. I didn't know if I should bring them in because she did one with Pumpkinhead. I have no idea. I mean, these are obviously look like some sort of science mill things, but they're plastic and inked, and she's got just candy in it. She said this is decorative candy, so don't eat it, but she's got spare heads, which are pumpkin heads. Get it? Because Mr. Pumpkinhead, that's hilarious. Spare heads. Such a funny sense of humor. But she used that and just created tags. Just this, of course, is using the Lumber 3D folder, so you can see that wood grain is much more substantial. So if you really want it to show up, that's what's great about the 3D folder versus just the wood grain cardstock. But it's a cool candy tag. And then, of course, she used the count, and she made his tag kind of coffin shape out of that wood. And then he's got fangs. Get it? Candy corn fangs, spare head. Just see, it's those details out of these cool bottles. But I'm glad she put in the note, because really that would have been my fuel. That would have been my fuel to be like, oh, look at that. I'll have some both, because it's got my favorites in there. Sure does. Looks like some autumn mix. That's what I like. I'm an autumn mix, a Brock's autumn mix purist. I am. So there you go. Pumpkinhead and the count. Just cool, right? Very cool. All right, I'll set him here. I've got one more of the count, and then we'll move on to this. So Nico created this count. I thought the palette of this was so, like, especially when like you just compare everybody's style, right? From Stacy to Emma to Paula to Kathy to Tammy and Nico, very smooth, beautiful ink blending, right? Look at that. And look at how kind of stoic he is in this framed panel. So you can see the stencil detail in the back. These are the etc. trims. This was an old vignette adornment. I love this long bat. This is retired as well. What a great piece, right? He was so cool, wicked cool. Great for that etc. trim, and then the dead of night. But just look at the use of color and just that little bit of shimmer on the candles, the flickering candle in there. But just how soft and muted his colors are, but they are inked to perfection with that layer in the background. Very cool. I love this, Nico. And just the dimension of those candlesticks and the count. Isn't he cool? Gosh, you guys. See what I mean? I'll try to fit his head into all of them, but like there you have it. When you see the count, one die, so many different personalities and so many different ideas for what you want to do with him, right? Maybe he's a tag, maybe he's going to be paired with, a light up moon in the back, maybe he's going to be a smaller vignette that's really kind of fancy, also with a light up moon. Maybe he's going to be with a cathedral window, maybe he's going to be with some wicked spider webs, or maybe he's going to be like, it's almost like a portrait you would see, hanging in Haunted Mansion, just the color. So very cool job on the count, you guys. So cool. Oh my gosh. So much inspiration. All right. We're in the home stretch. We've got we've got one basket and we're good. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the inspiration. The makers, I'm telling you, just did an amazing, amazing job. Beyond amazing, right? Beyond. They are very cool. All right. So we're going to head to the costume party. All right. That's the thing. And what's great about the costume party is that really the makers did a lot of different things with the costume party. And I say things because we've seen it. You're going to see makes from like using them individual or used as a set or all of that. So I'm going to try to sort the makes so it makes sense by maker. So this first set of cards with Costume Party, Jen created these. Love these colorful little cards, little inspiration, because using these guys, the background, all distress goodness. Look at that oxide back there, that wonderful creamy look. Using different stamps, right? Older stamp sets, great to do that. And then you can build these little characters. And the Colorize, they once you get in the groove, they really are not intimidating. I think sometimes if you do Colorize and you're frustrated the first time, you need to do it a few times, and then honestly, you're just going to find your groove. I love that stamp. I Love Candy. That is an old Halloween set as well. Same with the Trick or Treat. I think those background stamps came from the same set. But look at that mummy. He's so great. I love just that little shimmer in the background. And I love his teeth. Isn't he cool? And then there is our little vampire. And look at his little sparkle, right? That little black glitter. It's amazing how I've just kind of seen it. Makers really, you guys rocked it by using all that distress stuff in just such wonderful ways on these Sizzix makes. Because just a little detail just makes each one just stand out. Starting with an inked background and then using the die cut for the center of the show. So good. So good. I love that stamp set. I think I saw a link in the chat. A lot of people are looking at stuff, which is good. This next set, it's funny how many people kind of did like series of invitations. Yuko created these. Yuko has a great vintage style, so she treated the same characters, but a complete different vintage vibe. Here you can see the cardstock all sanded away, that little bit of sparkle, stamps in the background, and then that alphabet. That is a great alphabet. So see, even though it comes with something, this came with, I think, a Trick or Treat bag, just using it, it's a great stencil background. And there's that little bucket. It's funny to see that show up. How many makers kind of channeled that idea. There's our mummy, but look at the attention to detail in that grunging, right? That cool grunge look. There's our stamped background. I love that stamp set, the spider webs. And this one, the Halloween party with the monster. So again, idea, you're invited, costume party, Halloween party, but just seeing the characters. Completely different look, right? That's what it's all about. You do you. You can take an idea. That's why I really try to keep the package just about what that shape can do, because you as the maker, you're the one that's going to give it your personality. You're the one that's going to bring it to life in its own way. That's what it needs to be, right? Next little set of cards, Kathy created these, and these are very charming gift card holders, right? So this, she added a little bit more. You're going to see some other elements, some details. So I'll talk about each one. So here we've got the vampire, and I say a little gift card holder. See when you open it up, there's a little ghost town. Ooh, hello, little Starbucks card. Thank you very much. Love that. So we've got a little ghost town inside, created that little pocket, but you can see here, that's from Ghost Town 2. So a great scale for this, the little costume party. You can see the moon and the clouds and the bat. This guy, the monster, very charming. Here, there's the broom, the cat, and the mouse from Toil and Trouble. So very cool to see the scale of those dies used with this. So again, if you're thinking of getting more than one of the die sets, you can also mix and match even with something like this. So there's our mummy, and you can see from the Vault series those wonderful little tombstones, and then that is a stamp from maybe last year, the year before. It went with I think a haunted house, that cool moon. But just love the detail. I love that mummy cloth that she used on the mummy one. And all of these, of course, are gift card. Really clever. So even if you're, maybe you were going to throw an office party or something, you just want to send it to friends or neighbors, it's a great way to create a little set. So many different looks, right guys? Same die set, different looks. This card created by Nico, this is using, of course, the Brickwork 3D. I love how he die cut that window out of it, just kind of created those grungy bricks, and just seeing that mummy going across. I love the dimension. There you can see that wonderful mica in there. But yeah, it's just like he's kind of climbing out of a tomb, right? All of those layered pieces is very cool. I love that little, I love the little hieroglyphic stamps on there. That's a great touch, Nico. Very cool. But I love it. Just adding dimension to a card and incorporating different elements from, yeah, from the brick to the die cut pieces, or creating your own sentiments, right? So sometimes you just don't have the exact perfect thing, and you can find it whether it's on a sticker or something, or use whatever inspiration you have. Then we've got these. Let's just take this one. I've got stuff everywhere. I honestly do. So Audrey created this frame, right? So this frame, it's just a wood frame, but I'm trying to show you the texture and get that into focus, right? Again, texture, a little bit of texture goes a long way, because it transforms this frame that's just a wood frame, right? And it just makes it look like stone just by putting that on there. So really give your textures a shot. If you haven't done them because you think they always have to be chunky, you can just go in and just add a little bit of texture. I love seeing the little costume party. Look at the little sparkle in there. Audrey's so cute. There's just added little details on there where she stamped just dates, rest in peace here. And I love seeing it over the background, right? Very cute. I like the vintage palette of this too. But that little touch of black glitter, I don't know, just makes each of the characters sparkle just a little bit more. Especially his eyebrows, seriously. Oh my gosh. That's so good. It's like Eugene Levy right there.
That glitter shows us too. I mean,
it does.
Sparkling.
But that's why I did it. But it was, you know, like last week when I was talking about it, it's just glitter. But when you see it like in action, put to use, then you see like, okay, well, there we go. It's like diamonds. Yeah, it is. Really is. It sparkles like diamonds. All right. So this next one, I got to show you this. So Tammy created these for us. So I'm just going to set that up. Oh my gosh.
I love these.
They're so fun. So this is also using the tomb, but this is the smaller size. So the tomb kits that you guys have seen, they come in different sizes. So this is the number 8 size, but they all have candy in them. Okay. So I'll show you, because I'm gonna knock the candy out when I do it. So this one is vampire fangs. This one, mummy parts. And this one, Franken eyes. Okay. And using a vignette box, and again, adding that texture, she made each of us our own little tombstone.
That's Tammy.
Oh my gosh. Seriously. So if you think of like candy treats, right? Or what you're going to put where you're just looking for Halloween decor, friends, family, kids, neighbors, that again, that's the vintage varsity that we just did in chapter 3. It goes so well with so many things because of its style. So each of these has just epic detail of all of that grit and texture where it just looks like concrete. There you can see that mini folder in the background. There I am. Pretty sassy right there. Yep. I love that bat in there, but again, embossed. But then even on the other side, she's got some of that texture kind of wrapping around for the candy. And then there's the vignette box, right? So adding that little vignette just kind of gave it. So if you're ever doing a lot of stuff with vignettes, maybe you have a lot of extras of that small little box, it's great that it fits on those tags. But each one just kind of has a different look and feel, right? So this one's got that brick in the background, again with that texture. So fun, Tammy. Oh my gosh. A little tombstone, and then just carrying around that texture in the back and the vignette box, and even down to the detail of the band matching the background. See, each band like that matches that. Detail, 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 detail. All right. I know, I agree. I have never looked so good. That's it. My eyes right there. And Mario, look at that. Look at that head of hair, Mario. That's it. Look at that. So here you can see, I love that, just that mini foundry. That smirk though, that's your smile though. You do smile. You have a great smile. She did. She did. And then on the back, the Franken eyes, and again you can see that mini folder around there. Just it's very fun and very clever, and it's just a great use for stuff. I think that's what it's about. Is just like creating what you're inspired to do. It's whatever you feel like making. You are the maker. What letter dies? Again, this is vintage varsity. This is from chapter 3. We just launched this last month. It is a great alphabet die. It's really good, and you're going to see it in this one. So this is our final make. Yes, final make for the chapter. This is from Keisha, and this made me Keisha, this made me laugh out loud. It really did. It was, so this is the real boo. Maybe I watch too much reality TV, but this is the real booze of Halloween. All right. So again, there's that vintage varsity. You can see the typewriter. There's the pumpkin, and here are the real booze of Halloween. Look at this, you guys. Okay, so this little accordion book, so cute with the real booze. Just I think everything about it. Like, I'm so wrapped up in you with the mummy. There is the foliage background. There's that ghost coming up over the top. And just look at the colors, right? Just look at that bright yellow coming around, that candle with the red gloves. I agree. It's so cute, right, guys? It's so cute. Then we've got You're My Favorite Treat. And again, the colors to it, that just has me. So just the purple and blues and teals and all the layers in there against that brick background. And then we've got this wonderful minty, I love him just with that mint color and that citrus color over that circuit. I mean, really that circuit embossing folder. Hey boo, our connection is electric. I mean, seriously, that's what I'm saying. You can take that and you can just do you. You look at that and whatever is running through your imagination, chase that, catch that, and celebrate that. Don't just think, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't know about that idea. You really just need to run with it, because when it all comes together, it is magic. It's creatively you. And so I just think seeing these characters in this whole color and putting them together as the real booze of Halloween, that's what it is, you guys. That's a real booze. And that is Sizzix Halloween for 2021.